Hold up, I am on my way, I'm in motion. Let's go to the ocean. Yeah, let's go outside. We can hang out on the beach without freezing.
Welcome to Crafty Beach. This is Julie, and also welcome to Crafty Spring 2025. I put together all of my spring Dollar Tree DIYs that I've made so far this year on my channel. There's a total of 19 new spring DIYs, including spring DIYs, bee DIYs, and even St. Patrick's Day. So let's get started with 7 new spring DIYs. For the first DIY, I wanted to do a little garden fence scene to welcome spring. So I'm going to use 2 of these little fence signs from the Dollar Tree. They are hanging signs. I just removed the hangers from the back because I want to make a standalone sign and I want it to be a little bit of a wider fence. So I'm going to use 2 of them together. I liked these because they had the little points at the top, like a little picket fence. And I do want to kind of maintain that spacing between them. And so how I'm going to do that is I'm just going to use a popsicle stick. It's about the same width as that beam there in the back. And I'm going to cut down 2 little braces that I can connect here to the back. I do need to kind of get the staples out of the way. The Cricut weeder from the Dollar Tree is great for getting those little tiny staples out like that. And maintaining the distance between them, like a normal distance between the different fencing, I'm going to go ahead and glue both of those in place with a little bit of hot glue. That way I have a longer fence panel like this that I can decorate. Now it's time to paint it. A lot of DIYs I do for spring, I do like a white fence. I love like a white picket fence look, but I decided to add a little bit of color to this one. And I wanted it to be really pretty. So I mixed some turquoise together with some white and got this really beautiful light turquoise, almost an aqua color. And I'm going to paint the entire fence. Now I am painting the back as well because this is going to be a standalone piece. So I want it to look finished from any direction that you might see it. I'm going to use some of that Dollar Tree craft wood for a base for this one. So it will be standing a standalone sign. So I just did the back first and then I'm painting the front. I made sure to use a brush just to get in between all of the different fence panels. And I'm really kind of glad I chose this color. I think it's really whimsical and fun. And I like to use this color a lot, no matter what the season, but I think it's really pretty with spring. I think it looks great with the flowers. Now, I do like that color. I do want to give it a light distress, though. So I go back in with a little bit of ivory and a chunky brush from the Dollar Tree, slightly distressing it, wiping off any excess with a baby wipe until I just have a very soft distress on there. And I think that looks pretty good. Now I want to do a little sign to hang on the fence and I needed something kind of small. I'm going to use a Dollar Tree wood ruler. I love these things for crafting with. I'm just going to remove the sticker and cut it down to size. Now, paint stir sticks would probably be a little bit cheaper than the Dollar Tree rulers, but I do try to like to keep supplies from the Dollar Tree. It's just accessible to many people, including myself. So I am going to use the rulers today. Now, I painted it white, like an ivory color, but not very thick. I just kind of wanted it to be like a little bit of a whitewash on the sign. And I'm just going to do a little handwritten sign. I'm going to say welcome spring, but you could also say like welcome to my garden, something like that. Just with some handwriting, I'm going to capitalize spring. And I just kind of sketch it out with a fine detailed Sharpie first to kind of get my spacing and everything right. And then I went back over it with a regular black Sharpie. When I'm doing real fine things like this, I kind of like the Sharpies better than the paint pens because you don't have to worry about smearing and stuff like that. And then I whitewash over it to give it an aged look, just using a little makeup sponge and some ivory paint, and then a slight distress with some antique wax by Waverly. I just kind of work in one direction, wiping off the excess, just kind of aging it and giving it a little bit of a rustic look, which I'm going to do with most of the things on this project. If you have too much, you can always add a little bit more of your original color. And then I'm going to do a little flower since it's welcome spring. I used a Sharpie again, and I just did a very simple little flower, and I'm going to outline it with like the fine tipped Sharpie. and whitewash that as well to kind of make that go with the rest of it. For the hanger, I'm just going to do a piece of twine, something really simple. And I'm just going to glue that onto the back of our little ruler sign with a little dot of hot glue. And we can actually just hang this on the fence like this. I want it to hang a little bit crooked, but be over on the right side of the fence. For this side of the fence, I'm going to hang a little galvanized metal watering can. I think this is so cute. I got this at Target Dollar Spot, but you could also use the one that is a yardstake from the Dollar Tree. It's not much bigger. I've used that for crafting before. And I would really like to use a cup hook for this, but I couldn't find any in my stash. So I just used a little Dollar Tree nail into the fence to hang it up. I also wanted to hang at an angle like this, so I just use a little dot of hot glue just to keep that in place. And I'm going to do the same thing with the welcome spring sign so it stays kind of crooked on there like that. Now let's start on the base. I'm just going to use a piece of Dollar Tree craft wood. And I'm going to cover most of this with moss to make it look grassy, but I do want to stain it first just for any areas that might show through the moss. So I'm just going to use some antique wax by Waverly and go over the top, front, and back, and even like the ends of these, just to give that a pretty finish. And that actually stains really beautiful. I want to attach it like this where it's almost to the back of the wood, and I use some hot glue to attach it. I'm going to use quite a bit of hot glue to set this up to make sure it stays in place. You kind of have to give it time to set up as well. Once I get it partially set up, I'm going to run another bead of hot glue here in the front just to help stabilize this because it has the different things hanging from it, and so that makes it a little bit heavier and not wanting to stand up. And then I flip it around and I also do a bead of hot glue here on the back. And then just hold it until the hot glue has a chance to set up, and I think that looks pretty good. Now it's time to decorate it even more. I found some little mini flower pots that are wooden from the Dollar Tree, some of their little wooden ladybugs, and I also found tiny butterflies in the crafter square section. So I thought those would all be perfect to decorate this little fence for spring. These come in two different sizes. There's like a larger one and smaller one. I want to do like maybe 3 of them up there, just trying to figure out what I like where. They all kind of fit, so I think I'll do it like that with one large one and 2 of the smaller ones. I'm going to paint them to make them look like terracotta pots, and I actually have the perfect color. It's called terracotta. This is a paint that I got at Target. I think it was like in a 4-pack of different colors of paint, but it's pretty close to the terracotta color of a pot, so I think that will work pretty well. And I just go over the outside and the top rim of all of them, anywhere you're going to be able to see them. And I'm going to fill them up with some tiny flowers from Dollar Tree to look like little planters with flowers inside. So once I get those painted, I also want to go ahead and paint the butterfly because these are unfinished. I'm going to do an orange color with this one, just painting it with a makeup sponge works well. The ladybug is already perfectly painted, so I think that will work well. I want to go ahead and attach the pots now before I add the moss and stuff like that because that would kind of get in the way. So I just use a dot of hot glue everywhere I want one of my little planters to be, and I put the pots right there. Now, up next is the ladybug. It had a sticker on the back, but I would rather it be hot glued flat to it. So I just peeled the double-sided tape off the back of that. And then I'm also going to add a few more details to the butterfly. It seemed a little bit plain. So it's orange, so I thought black would logically make sense for a pattern on here. So I just go around the different sections and the outer rim with one of the fine tip black Sharpies. I used like kind of the bigger one there for the body. And I don't want to add too much detail, but I think that'll be good because it has little cutouts in there. So you'll kind of see a pattern in there anyway. And a dot of hot glue right over here. We can have a little butterfly flying in front of our little spring fence. I did distress the ladybug just because everything else was kind of distressed, and the butterfly with a tiny bit of ivory paint just to make it match the vibe of this display. For the grass, I'm going to use some of the Dollar Tree reindeer moss. And what I want to do is just attach it all over the wood that is visible there to give it that spring garden feel. It makes it great like faux grass or foliage. So I put some hot glue there on that ledge, and just kind of do it bunch by bunch. I don't want my bunches to be too thick. Um, just enough to provide pretty good coverage. So I did the front first. There is a little bit of room on each side that I can glue some to. And then I also want to do the front here where you can see it. So I just hot glue that on, and I'm also going to kind of wrap that around the edges, basically anywhere you can see it. I had so much fun putting the spring DIY together. I love spring DIYs. They're so fun and bright. And I'm sure a lot of you guys are still in the depths of winter and you can enjoy thinking about spring. For the little flower pots, I put a dot of hot glue in the bottom of each. And instead of using soil or anything like that, I'm just going to use some of the brown floral moss from Dollar Tree to fill it in there. It's a little bit different color than the reindeer moss you can see, but I thought that would be a good filler, and then we can fill that up with flowers. A lot of times when I go to the Dollar Tree, especially in spring, I'm looking for some of the smallest flowers that I can find. And there's a couple different shades of the pink ones that are real tiny like this. So I'm just going to do 3 of them in this pot. That's the larger pot to fill that up. I'm also going to do like one of these. The whole thing won't fit. So I'm just going to cut off the tip of it where you have a little purple plant like growing up. I thought that would be cute and a nice variety as opposed to the flowers. And then this is the other color of pink, the very tiny flowers like this. I do have quite a stash of like little tiny flowers like this because I find I use them more for crafting than I actually do the larger flowers. So some soft pink ones in that pot. And there it is, our little welcome spring fence. I think it's so colorful and cheerful being the blue fence. So don't be afraid to paint your fence a color like that. But I think this turned out so cute and it was really fun to put together. I love all the little details, the little butterflies, the ladybugs, and the flower pots. So cute. Okay, for the next DIY, we're going to use one of these little flower hooks. I think they're kind of new at my Dollar Tree. And one of these ornate frames. I think these are kind of new too. They have just like a black cardboard in them, which is kind of weird, but it's a really cool frame. It is made out of plastic. I wanted to paint it ivory. I think that's going to look really pretty for spring. And I want a little bit of a farmhouse vibe, so we're going to be distressing this as well. I don't want to get perfect coverage on this because if you leave a little bit of the gold showing through, it adds another layer of distress to it. But you're definitely going to need a brush to get down in all of the detail. But I think it's a really pretty frame to craft with. When I first saw it, I was like, not my style. And then I looked at the actual frame itself and I'm like, oh, that could actually be really pretty if you painted it. And it really is. So that's what it looks like after one coat of ivory paint. I do touch it up a little bit because I had a little bit too much gold showing through. I want a little bit, but not too much. So I touch it up a little bit and then I'm going to go in and distress it even further because I really want to bring out the detail and all of that ornate texture there at the top. So I'm going to use some antique wax by Waverly and just kind of drag it over all of that texture and slightly distress the frame as well. I don't want it to be too dark though, so I kind of follow that up with a baby wipe. So you still get that ivory color showing through, but just a little bit of distressing all the way around the frame. And isn't that so pretty for something from the Dollar Tree? I love it. It looks like something that you would find in the thrift store, like an older frame. If you get it too dark in any spots, you can always go back with your original color and touch up those spots. But I think it did a good job of bringing out a lot of details on it. Now, this is the flower. I think these come in different colors. They are a hook, but it's really easy. All you got to do is use a screwdriver and you can take the hook off. One thing I did notice though is that it kind of falls apart on you. So you do have to save the screws so that you can put it back together. But I thought I would take advantage of it because it's going to make it easier to paint. I wanted to do like a salmon color flower, this really beautiful color of pink. And so I'm just going to go all over it with that. And this is actually way easier to paint in two pieces like this. So I'm just going to go with it. I do one coat, it paints really well. It is plastic, so you're not going to be able to wipe it with like the baby wipe or anything like that because it will take off the paint. But I'll show you how I kind of distress this to make it look really pretty. So I just make sure I get in all those areas in the front. And then to distress it, I'm just kind of working my way out like this, like a flower would be. And I'm just using that ivory paint. Go back in with your original color if you get too much anywhere. And I'm going to do that for both parts of the flower. And I really love this flower. I think it's really pretty. So if you see one of these, definitely pick it up. So pretty. I distress the edges a little bit more on this one, just so it's a little bit more uniform, and we can start putting this together. Now, there is like a little dot in there that pokes out where you can kind of line it up so you know exactly where your screws need to go. So I'm going to go ahead and screw this back on. You're not really going to be able to see the back of this flower, but I didn't really like how it looked back here. So I decided to kind of use my paint that I still had on my paintbrush just to kind of paint the petals back there, just in case you can see the back of it. And I'm going to display it against some of the spring burlap fabric. This is the Dollar Tree burlap fabric with like that turquoise color polka dot. And I'm going to cover the little piece of cardboard that was in there, the black piece of cardboard. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut a piece out. Luckily, I didn't have to iron it because they do kind of fold that up. I can just cut out a little slice here from the side. Now, I didn't like the fact that it was black though, because I felt like you could really see that through the holes in the burlap. So I'm going to paint mine ivory. It's kind of a finished cardboard, so it was actually not very easy to paint. I think I had to do at least 3 coats of paint, and I don't really care if I get great coverage. I just want it to be brighter so that it will show through white instead of black through the fabric. But it really did not want to be painted, which is why it like required so many coats of paint. But once I get that painted, I'm just going to go ahead and Mod Podge the burlap on there. I cut it a little bit larger than I needed, and then I can just go ahead and cut the excess material off, and I won't have to worry about any fraying because all the areas I want will be Mod Podged down. And Mod Podge is great with burlap to prevent any fraying. I'm just going to go ahead and smooth this out. It dried pretty well. I kind of wiped it with a paper towel and then flipped it over and cut off the excess material. I do want a clean cut along the edge so it will fit back into the frame. And I think this is going to be a really cute background for this flower. I love mixing the blue in with the spring. I just think it's so pretty. Now, this only fits one way in. You want the little carved out pieces to be there on the bottom with the corners rounded. And then I'm going to pop the back on this and put this back together. You can hang it or it's got a stand on there. I'm going to use the stand. I think that'll look really pretty for a spring DIY. And we're going to display the flower on there just like that. So I do some hot glue here, kind of the lowest portion that's going to make some contact with the burlap and the cardboard back there, and just glue it in the middle, making sure I press it down so it gets good contact. And this is how it turned out. I think it's really pretty and whimsical for spring. I love the colors and I really love that frame. Isn't that so pretty? And I think the distressing brings a lot out of that, especially with the flower. Like with the metal flowers at Dollar Tree, I find when you distress them, just with one color like that, it just gives them so much more character. And I really love that burlap. I have so many different styles of burlap from Dollar Tree. Whenever I see them, I always grab them. For this spring DIY, I'm going to use this sign that I actually got on clearance at Target Dollar Spot. But you know what? It's the same exact size as the ones from the Dollar Tree. I just liked the lighter wood frame on this one, so I'm going to use this one instead because I've used all of those from my stash from the Dollar Tree, but they do have those in the Dollar Tree frame as well. I'm just going to start here. I tried to remove the tag from the back, and I'm going to change out where the hanger is because I'm going to make this a horizontal sign. What I want to do is do a little wall garden. I wanted this to be a hanging piece. So as you can see, the sign is 12 inches. So I'm just going to find the center so I can center this. And I find the trick of these little Dollar Tree hangers that are not sawtooth is to kind of hot glue them in place first. That way it doesn't move around when you're trying to put those little tiny screws back in there. And it just makes it a lot easier. and you don't have to, use another hanger. For the fence, on this one, I'm gonna use 2 of these little Dollar Tree pallet boards. And for the garden gate, I found this sign from the Dollar Tree that I think is so pretty. It says, "Welcome to our garden." It's white, it's distressed, it's got flowers all over, and I thought it was the perfect shape for a garden gate. So I'm just gonna remove the hanger. It was like a little hanging tag, and I'm going to use that as the gate. And then these pieces can be the fence on each side. And I want it to be like a 3D piece where it sticks out. So it's okay that the frame is a little bit smaller than what I have planned. I'm just going to use some painter's tape to kind of try to protect my frame here. What I'm going to do is paint a very abstract sky on here. So I thought like the top half could be the sky, the bottom half could be the grassy garden filled with flowers. And so I really only have to paint half of it blue. I'm just going to go ahead and drag that down. I do want pretty good coverage. I found that sometimes these paintbrushes can lose more bristles than they have in them, it seems. So I was trying to make sure I didn't get any bristles stuck on there, but this is how that part looked. The painter's tape did a pretty good job, except it kind of prevented me from getting all the way in the corners here. So I'm just going to kind of fill those in. I do want it to be a sunny day, but I want a little bit of a look of clouds in there. So I'll show you how I end up doing it. First, I kind of just sponge on a little bit more blue, and then I use one of those stencil daubers from the Dollar Tree, and I go on with some white acrylic paint to make some puffy little clouds here in the sky. I didn't want it to look too cartoonish though, so I tried to blend mine in with some of the blue that I used originally to make some little fluffy clouds there in the sky, but I don't want it to be too white. I just want it to be more subtle. So I kind of go back between the two colors. When that dried, I found that you couldn't really see the clouds much at all. So I'm going to go in here for a second coat of white. This time maybe not distressing as much of it as away, but I do want to blend it too. So just using that original blue color that I used and the makeup sponge and just blending it until I'm happy with it. Again, I want it to be very abstract. For the fence, I'm going to make this fence white because the gate is white. So I thought that would make sense for a little welcome to our garden sign. And so I'm just going to paint these white. I want them almost to look like a whitewash because that's kind of the vibe that that sign is giving. So I'm just going to do a thin coat of white acrylic all over these. And I'll also come in and distress these a little bit because as you can see that welcome to our garden sign is slightly distressed as well. I just want a good coat of white all over these. I don't really have to worry about the back on these. You're not going to be able to see them, but I do try to do any of the edges of the palette board that you might be able to see. I paint that white as well. A very light distress. I like to come in from the ends like that. Gives it a great distressing, but also all over just slightly. And then I go back with a baby wipe to wipe off the excess. And it just kind of gave it a little bit of an aged look, which goes with that original sign a little bit. Now, to kind of tie it in together, I'm going to slightly distress this one as well. It's almost distressed more with a gray, but I thought if I added a little bit of distressing with some Antique Wax by Waverly, it would make it blend in and match a little bit better. So there it is, our little welcome to our garden fence. And now we can work on this a little bit. I still wasn't happy with those clouds, so I went over with a little bit more of that original blue, sponged that on until I just got a little less prevalent cloud. I want it to be very subtle back there. And then I'm going to have to figure out a way to attach this all together. I thought I was going to need some pieces to bump out some of the pieces. I want the gate to be level with the fence. So I'm going to try some of these little mini Jenga blocks from the Dollar Tree. And I found if you put them on their side like that, it was the perfect depth. So I'm going to attach 2 up here for the top of the garden gate. And I'm also going to do 2 here at the bottom because it needs to stick out enough where it is flat level with the fence, just like that. The fence has that little thing on the bottom, the brace and the frame. So it needs to stick out a little bit too. And so I'm going to use one of the Jenga blocks, but this time laying flat. And that gave it the right little support there. And I can just connect that part to the sign. So I'm going to do the same thing here in reverse on the other side with one more of the Jenga blocks. Now that I have those attached, I can go ahead and add my grassy scene. I'm going to use Dollar Tree's reindeer moss for the grass in our garden. Since you will be able to see through the fence a little bit, I wanted it to have like a green grassy look. So I'm just going to cover this little quarter and this little quarter over here with some reindeer moss. So half of it sky, half of it moss, and we'll also add flowers. I want flowers just coming out of the fence, flowers above the fence, so it really looks like you're entering a garden. And that little bit of a detail of just adding that moss back there, I think really helps. For the flowers, I want to use some smaller ones. These are the Tweedia. I found that, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. That's how it's spelled. But they have many different colors and styles on these. So I thought I would do some pink ones. We have some little lavender flowers. These are also the Tweedia, and see how they're like two different colors together, like purple and yellow. And I want it to be kind of random what flowers are where. And so I thought I would add a few more colors in here so I don't repeat. So that is the white Tweedia and just kind of whatever I could find. I like the idea of them sticking out like that on top of the fence. So you're seeing the garden actually overtaking the fence. I think that's really pretty for spring. And a little hot glue there together with the moss is going to hold these in place. And since this is a standing sign, I do want to make sure everything is going to stay when I hang this on the wall. So just making sure everything is going to work like this. I think that's enough flowers for now. I'm going to go ahead and attach the little garden gate, our little welcome to our garden sign. And you have to make sure that your moss is not in the way for your Jenga block there, but I just put hot glue on the frame and on the Jenga block. So it will glue it to both of those items and line it up with the bottom of the sign we use for the garden gate. Now, if you can't find this sign for the middle for the garden gate, you could always just make a garden gate out of another one of these little pallet boards really easily, or just have the fence go straight across. Now, I thought it'd be fun to have some of the individual flowers like kind of coming through the fence like that too. I'm also going to add a little bit of this lavender. This is not the lavender from Dollar Tree. This is the lavender from Walmart, but it's pretty close to the lavender from Dollar Tree. I'm going to stick a few of those behind the gate, and then just using hot glue, some of these flowers that I had extra, I can just kind of have those coming through. I just put dots of hot glue on the stems of everything and kind of put it through the fence like it's kind of overgrowing the fence. And maybe a purple flower here, maybe a pink one right over here. So colorful and fun for spring. I really love how this turned out and the little like 3D nature of it. I think it's so pretty. You could actually stand this up if you wanted to make a base for it, or I think it looks really fun hanging on the wall. Here's a little close-up view of our little garden fence, our little flower garden. I think it's a really fun DIY for spring, and this was also a really fun DIY to put together. Isn't that so colorful and cheerful? Now for the next DIY, I picked up a metal flower from the Dollar Tree, and I thought we could use one of the little metal round signs from the Dollar Tree to make a stem for the flower. Now it does have a hanger on here. I'm just going to use pliers to take that off. And I kind of wanted to take the entire thing off so it wouldn't get in the way. So I just kind of twisted around that part on the back of the petal, trying not to cause any damage on the petal itself. I like the blue color of this one already, so I'm going to kind of go with that. I love the blue for spring. I do just want to add some fun details to it. Now for the stem, I thought about painting it green like a stem for a flower, but I thought it would be even more fun to wrap it in twine. So just starting at the top, I'm just going to wrap the entire thing with twine all the way to the base. So it doesn't really matter if you get the white sign or the black sign like this. You're not going to be able to see that part of the sign anyway. The metal circle on there is just the right size to kind of hide behind the flower and give you a way to attach it. Now I burned off the fuzzies there on the twine, but I thought I could also make some little leaves out of the twine as well. I thought that would be really cute. So I'm going to cut a piece of twine that I can kind of circle together like that to make a little leaf. So I just glue it together like that. I thought about doing this with the wired twine from Dollar Tree, but when you work with smaller pieces like this, the wire always likes to come out. And this actually kept its shape pretty well. So I just glued that on. But then I decided I wanted a little bit more detail on it. I wanted like the vein to go down the middle of the leaf. So I cut out another piece of twine and just kind of glued that straight across like that. I think that looks really cute. So I'm going to go ahead and do another little leaf here for the little flower stem. So I'm going to cut another piece down. This time I'm going to go ahead and just add the stem first. It's easier that way, adding a second piece of twine to go right down the middle. And then I can attach that. I'm just gluing these to the back of the stem. And I'm going to have this one kind of go up a little bit. I think they're really cute. I like the base on this. I thought about covering it with some moss, but I kind of like the simplicity of it just being wood. For the center of the flower, I'm also going to use the Dollar Tree twine. I just start in the middle with some hot glue, and I'm just going to start working in a spiral all the way out. It provides a great center. These metal flowers, sometimes the centers don't look great, but I think that a little detail like this can really make it look cute, and it's going to tie it in together with the stem and the leaves. I'm also going to distress it a little bit with some white, just kind of working my way out. It's kind of a soft color already, but again, I really like to distress these. I burn off any fuzzies there on the leaves and the center part of the flower with my lighter, and we can put this together. Now, I know metal does not like the hot glue, and this is metal and metal. So what I decided to do was to use some of the double-sided tape from Dollar Tree. It's pretty strong. In addition to the hot glue, to make this stronger, and I just attached this like this to cover the metal circle. That's when I noticed that you could really not see the top leaf there. So I am going to move that down a little bit so you can see that better. I can just use my heat gun here, peel it off, move it down a little bit where you can see it a little bit better, and glue that to the back. But I think that was a really easy DIY for spring. And how beautiful is this? I love it. So if you see any of these little metal flowers, they have several different varieties. This is kind of the smaller one versus some of the larger ones that I have from Dollar Tree. This is a fun idea of a way to display it. Give it a little stem, some leaves, and it stands up on its own like this. So that is really pretty as well. I want to DIY a basket wreath that I can hang on my door for spring, and I want it to look like a little basket. Now, Dollar Tree doesn't normally carry basket wreaths like this, so we're going to DIY one with one of these letter trays from the Dollar Tree. Now, I got this in with like the containers, trash baskets, and stuff like that. They have them in different colors. It doesn't really matter what color you get. You're just going to want something about this shape. You could probably even do it with a one like this that's plastic as well. What I'm doing is just using my wire cutters to cut this. They were all pretty thin, except for the ones on the edges, but to cut it down to size. And you can make your basket wreath however big you want it. I think that looks pretty good. I did, I guess, about 2/3 of it. And then I'm going to fill it up with some floral foam. This is the floral foam from the Dollar Tree. It's just a big chunky block, and I think I'm only going to need one if I attach it semi close to the top here. So I'm just going to do a couple rows of hot glue here, and just everywhere where I can kind of get to the wire here to glue that on. It's not super easy to attach for this, but I think that will work. It's not completely flat on the back, and so some of it kind of digs in there, but that's okay because that'll help keep it in a place, right? Now, I probably should have measured this first because it is a little thicker than the basket itself, but that's okay. I'm just going to trim it down. And I'm just using one of those pool noodle cutters from the Dollar Tree to trim down my floral foam where it is now flat on the back where it should be. Now I'm going to actually make the basket. So I'm going to cover mine with some of the burlap roll from Dollar Tree. Now, you don't have to use this. If you have it, it would be great, but in the end, you're really not going to be able to see it. And then for the hanger for the basket wreath, I'm going to go ahead and attach it now, just using some twine and knotting it onto the top row there because I'm going to be covering this with burlap, and then we're going to be covering it with moss to do a spring basket wreath. So I thought this was the easiest time to attach it. I just knot it on there, and then to prevent it from sliding forward, I'm going to secure it with just a dot of hot glue on each side. Now it's time to make the basket. I'm going to simply wrap this entire thing with the burlap roll. And again, you could probably use any ribbon or material you have. This thickness was about perfect though. And I just start here on one side and I just make sure it's hot glued really well there. And this is going to be the back of the top of the basket. I hot glue it to the other side, wrapping it around. I want it straight all the way across the top so it covers everything. All of the wire will be covered. And this is going to provide a great base for us to attach some moss. Now here in the back, I kind of slightly slant it down and then just keep wrapping it up, kind of like a mummy, I guess. Now that covers most of the basket, so I'm going to hot glue it here to the base of the basket there. And I have enough on here that I can actually cover up the bottom too, so one roll was perfect size for this. I just have to figure out how to make this work. I have enough here to cover that bottom section like that. And I'm going to just hot glue it to the wire basket to secure that in place. It is the perfect size. I didn't even have to cut it. And then I'm going to glue this down so it doesn't kind of gap out like that. And then I'm going to kind of wrap it like a present down here. Just kind of push the sides in like you're wrapping the end of a gift. And then I can bring the remaining burlap down. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect because you're not going to be able to see it. We're going to cover the front of it, the bottom, and the sides all with Dollar Tree moss, and then fill it up with some spring flowers. I think that looks pretty good for a DIY basket so far. And it seems pretty sturdy. I'm making this for my front door for spring, so I want it to be able to hold up outside. Now to cover it with moss, I'm going to start with reindeer moss, and that's going to be the majority of it. I love crafting with this reindeer moss from the Dollar Tree. I'm so glad that all my stores have been getting it back in. I just keep stocking up on it and using it in my DIYs. And I'm kind of going for a little bit of a spring forest feel on the front of this. So I'm going to add in another color of moss too, just for a little variety. But if you only have the reindeer moss, it would totally work. And I'm just working one section at a time. I kind of rip the reindeer moss to make sure it's thinner and not just a big clump of it. And I'm trying to go for maximum coverage. So I just started here at the base and I start hot gluing it, working my way up. Gonna flip it around here and finish off the front. Now this was a little time consuming, so we're gonna speed this way up so I can cover this entire thing with moss. But isn't that so pretty? I love it. I go all the way to the edge of the burlap. Burlap is my favorite because you can see through the moss at all. I like the look of the burlap for the basket, and it provides a nice durable material for the back. So same thing here on the bottom. I just start hot gluing it one piece at a time. I try to keep them in clumps. I don't want it all individual pieces because it just makes hot gluing it even longer, but trying not to go for any bald spots there. And then I'm also going to do the sides as well. Basically any part of the basket that's going to be visible, but definitely not doing the back of it. So same thing, I just glue this here, trying to hide my burlap the best that I can with that moss. And I'm going to go in with a little bit of the floral moss as well. It has a darker green color just for variety. And I like mixing my greens with moss. It's totally optional though. You'll have to see if you like that. Now I got this side done as well. And I think this is covered with moss. Just making sure I don't have any bald spots. Everything looks pretty good. If I have any, I can kind of just patch them like that without even adding any more. This is the darker green floral moss that I was talking about. I don't like crafting with it for this kind of thing very much because as you can see, they're like little individual pieces of floral moss, which just makes it more challenging to attach. As you can see, I'm only able to do a little bit at a time. Now I'm using my new hot glue gun. That is the Surebonder cordless hot glue gun that uses my Ryobi batteries that I used to use for my Ryobi hot glue gun. It's a lot cheaper than the Ryobi hot glue gun and I'm really liking it. It's working pretty well for me. Battery lasts a long time. It keeps enough hot glue ready to go for me. I did add it to my Amazon shop, which is linked in the description of today's video. If you want to check it out, just remember you will need batteries and a charger. I think I have everything linked in there that I use, but I love it. It's my favorite hot glue gun. Now, as you can see, if I come up upon a piece of bark or a little stick in the moss too, I'm adding that to it too, just because of course I wanted that foresty feel for spring. And this is how it turned out. Now, Time to add a few more fun items to it. These are some of the little mini mushrooms from the Easter aisle at Dollar Tree. I'm going to go for like a pink, purple, and white theme for the flowers for this. So I thought it would be perfect to use some pink and purple mushrooms. And these are just the right size. They have wires on them, so I can kind of push that down into the floral foam or any of the areas where it's below the floral foam. I can just leave it a little bit longer, and they were pretty long though. So even down here, I cut off probably an inch or so and just kind of push them in there and they will stay on. Aren't these so cute? I love these. I use these for spring and Easter crafting, but I also like to use them for like fairy gardens and stuff like that. They're so cute. And it's a lot easier than making these from scratch for sure. So just scattering some pink and purple around. And there it is. We have our little mossy basket wreath. I think it looks so fun. Now it's time for the flowers. But first, I want to fill it with a little bit more floral moss. This is kind of some of the brown. They have different colors if you've ever bought this at Dollar Tree. And I thought the variation in color by using some of the brownish green would look good there for the top and cover up the foam. Now that we have the basket wreath complete, now we can add the flowers. I want it to be overflowing with spring flowers, and I'm going to be using different spring flowers from the Dollar Tree. So I'll show you each one I'm going to use. I picked out pinks and purples. This one's called the Pom Pom and Pink. These are some new spring florals that I got at Dollar Tree. And I'm going to cut them with my wire cutter and kind of add them individually. That way I can have a variety and they're not all together in bunches like this. So I'm going to start by spreading a couple of those, 3, and then we can add a little purple with some of the Dollar Tree lavender. So pretty. And as you can see, I'm not cutting them super tall. You really can't on a lot of these Dollar Tree florals when you cut them down. But since I put the foam so close to the top, they're definitely long enough. Now, I think these are new this year. They're boxwood. They had different colors. You could get them with pink. You could get them with purple. You could get them with just white. I think they're so pretty. And they have little like berries on them. And then I'm going to mix it up. I'm going to do some with like the pink and some with the lavender. And I like the addition of the greenery to it as well. These are some white flowers I also got from the Dollar Tree. I don't know what kind those were. They didn't have a tag on them. And I'm just going to kind of add those in there as well. I'm trying to alternate the color, but I don't want it to be super symmetrical. I want it to look just like a bunch of wildflowers. These are larkspur from the Dollar Tree. They're tall and pink. They have a cute little effect there at the end of the flower. So that's going to add a little bit of height. And I just keep adding flowers until I'm happy. Now for a little bit of greenery. This is the Dollar Tree. I say eucalyptus. Kind of looks like the boxwood too, doesn't it? And I'm going to add that all over. I think it just said greenery on there. And then once I got that all in there, I decided just to add a little more where I needed a little bit of pink, where I needed a little bit of greenery and white. I just kind of scatter it around. Again, I want it to look like a basket wreath. So I want it to be overflowing with spring flowers. And I think it turned out so beautiful for spring. I can't wait to hang this on my front door. Well, Valentine's Day is over now, so I guess I can right now. And then it's just a few more flowers. I definitely wanted it full. And maybe a little bit more greenery over here. And I think that this DIY is complete. Isn't this so pretty? I love the mossy details. We have the mushrooms. We have all the beautiful flowers. And I kind of kept a color scheme there with the pinks and the purples for spring. And let me show you how it turned out. It's very vibrant. I love the mossy look of the basket wreath. I think I'll leave it together like this, but I'm thinking, you could do that for other seasons as well, adding the different moss to it. And it was just such a fun way to make a little basket wreath since Dollar Tree doesn't have any baskets or anything quite this shape. Now, have you seen these new flowers they have at the Dollar Tree? They're made out of some kind of resin material. They have 3 different varieties, but I think one of them that I have didn't really look like a flower. So I'm going to have two of the same, but that's okay. But I was really wondering what I could do with these, right? And then I came up with this idea. Now, the first thing I want to do is make it colorful. We're doing spring here. We don't want to just do white, but I don't want to cover up the great shading and distressing on these. So I'm going to mix like a little whitewash with some spring colors. The first one I did, I mixed salmon acrylic paint with water, probably 2 to 1 water to paint. And I'm going over trying to like whitewash it so that that distressing will still come through and I won't have to go back and add all those details in it. As you can see, they're pretty thick and chunky, and I love how that turned out. Look how pretty that looks. So definitely a winner. And I am going to do the same thing here on the other side. I'm just using some little plastic cups that I got from the Dollar Tree. I think those are the little dressing containers, like in the to-go aisle. Great size disposable cups for crafting. And so I did one flower in that salmon color. This one I'm going to do in a bright yellow. So again, mixing it with water to make a very thin, kind of a stain. And we're going over this one. I thought yellow would be perfect for this one because it looks a little bit, like a sunflower. And this one has a lot of petals. So I'm going over the whole thing. And it kind of soaks in a little bit. I was drying it with my heat gun. If you find you have too much on there, you can always just kind of blot it off there like I did with a paper towel. And that looks way better. So we're going to flip it over. I also made sure to do the sides on these. And we're going to put these all together, make them into standing flowers, and look like a little flower garden. So the yellow one looks really pretty too. I love the whitewash. It's not like really obnoxiously painted. It's just a tint of color. Now with this one, I used Caribbean blue, and I think I used more water than I intended for the blue paint. So it kind of turned out a little bit thin. I wasn't sure, so I went ahead and did a coat on there and did the sides and dried it to see if it was too thin. And compared to the other ones, I didn't think it was vibrant enough. So I just add a little bit more paint to it to make it a little bit thicker whitewash. I guess color wash, huh? And go over it again. And I liked that a lot better. Again, I want it to be thin, but because I want to see all those details through it, but I also want it to pack a punch of color. So I did that on both sides, making sure to get the sides as well. And these all dried really well. Now, I do want to distress them slightly, even though they already have a distressing. I like adding white to the Dollar Tree flowers. Always think that's pretty. So I just take some white acrylic and a chunky brush, and I'm starting to distress out. And I just kind of work with the shape of the flower. If you get too much on there, you can wipe off the excess paint. With just a baby wipe is what I use. And then we're going to do the same thing here on the yellow flower. And it just adds another color, makes them look distressed. I love distressing things. And I'm going to do the same thing over here with this flower. I think it's okay that I have two flowers that are the same because they're kind of on opposite ends here. And I want to make one flower a little taller too. So I'm going to use these Dollar Tree dowels. I'm not going to cut them down. I'll just kind of figure that out when I put this all together. And then I'm using one of these long board signs from the Dollar Tree. This one was already green, and so I thought that would be perfect for spring. So I'm going to leave it its existing color. And I'm going to measure, this one's 18 inches. So every 6 inches, I can have a hole. And I broke out the power tools and got a drill bit that was about the same size as that dowel. I do want it to be sturdy. So you don't want it to go in easily. You do want a little bit of resistance in there. And I went ahead and drilled 3 holes for 3 flowers. Now, I wasn't sure how it was going to be drilling into the flowers, the resin flowers, but I thought we would give it a go. I'm going to go not there on the actual seam, but back a tiny bit, just so I thought it would be easier to drill there. And they were kind of hit or miss. That first one was really easy. This one I had to kind of work my drill a little bit to get it to go all the way in there. But as you can see, the sides of these is not super thick, and you can drill through them. So we have our sign drilled. We have our flowers. Just trying these on for size. Looks like they're going to fit. I will have to use a little bit of glue to attach it to make it a little bit sturdier. So I add some glue there to the hole that I drilled and then add my dowel to it, kind of pushing this one in a little bit to make the side flowers a little bit shorter, but not too much. Just a little bit shorter. just so they're not all straight across. And so this one I'm hot gluing, and this one I don't push in at all, just right there where I need to glue it to it. And so see how that one's going to be a little bit taller? And then this one, I want to make the same height as the pink flower. So again, some hot glue here, making sure I can get it all the way in and make sure that that is about the same height. And now we can start putting this together. Now I'm going to wrap the wood dowels with twine. I kind of wish I would have done it before. I didn't know how far this was going to go into the sign, so I didn't. But I think it would be easier to do that step now. But this is how I did it. So I just add hot glue to all of the holes and just secure these in place. I think I really chose a good size drill bit because they went in really nicely, but it's also pretty sturdy. This is what it looks like so far. And then I had to start wrapping the stems with the twine. I just attach it with the hot glue there on the back and start wrapping it around. Now I'm using the Dollar Tree twine. It's kind of thin, so it's going to take quite a few times going around this to wrap it all the way. And I found it a little bit difficult because I had to kind of go around the flower like this, right? Otherwise, it would get a little bit tangled up, but I just took my time and wrapped this. I'm also going to be doing little leaves made out of the burlap as well. It's very inspired by the flower I did in my last spring DIY video where I did metal flowers. And I loved the look of the jute twine stems and leaves. I think it's really cute. So I go all the way to the bottom here and hot glue that off, cutting off the excess. I had my string a little long too, which makes it a little bit more difficult. So I'm going to cut this one a little shorter and hope I cut it long enough. And we're going to do the same thing over here with the blue flower. This is why I think it would be a little bit easier to do this before you attach them to the sign, but I already had mine glued in place, so I had to make it work. Shorter is definitely easier though, and I just keep wrapping these. They do have a little bit of a hairy surface on there that, just like rope, that we can burn off here in the end to shape them up. But I think this turned out so pretty. It is a nice big spring display that really you could display anywhere. I think I'm going to do it like maybe in my entryway on my little console table as soon as you come in the front door. I think that would look really cute there. I didn't bother about painting my sign because I want to use some moss there at the bottom. And it's already green, so I thought that was another fun color for spring. And I'm really glad I decided to add some color to these flowers. I think they turned out really pretty. So all three of our little twine stems are done. I just burn off the fuzzies here with my lighter, and we can start DIYing the little leaves. I want to do two leaves per flower. I think that will fit well. I'm just going to go ahead and pre-make them here. So I take that same twine, and I'm working on a silicone mat so I can hot glue to it really easily. I got the silicone mat on Amazon. I have it linked in my Amazon shop as well. These things are fantastic. Hot glue does not stick to them. And this one I think is called the Monster Mat, so it's really big, so you can make as much mess as you want on these. I love mine for crafting. But as you can see, I'm just kind of making a teardrop shape, attaching the ends, and then pulling it straight across for like a little stem down the leaf. So I'm going to make a total of 6 of these. Really easy to do and a really fun little detail. It keeps its shape pretty well, even though it's not wired or anything like that. Just peeling that off the silicone mat now, and I can start hot gluing these to the back of the stem. I want to alternate like 2 on each flower. If you can kind of tilt them up like that, that looks pretty cute too. And then I'm going to kind of alternate which side they're on to kind of mix it up a little bit, make it random, and attach them to all 3 of our flowers. And I think this was such a fun way to DIY these flowers. When I bought these, I really had no idea what I was going to do with them, but this has turned out so cute. This is what it looks like so far. And now it's time to add some moss. Again, I'm going to use some of the Dollar Tree reindeer moss. I keep buying this and buying it, and I'm like using it as I keep buying it. So I have to keep buying more. And I'm like, how much moss can I possibly need? But then I thought about Easter, and I love covering things with moss for Easter. So yeah, I need it all. I need the moss. Luckily, my stores have been getting so much of it in that I don't feel like I'm wiping it out when I get like 2 or 3 bags at a time. And I'm just using hot glue and I'm covering the writing on this sign. This sign was actually really cute from the Dollar Tree. I actually had this displayed in my master bedroom for a while, like underneath the flat screen TV in there. But I kind of got tired of cleaning around it, and you really couldn't see it too well in there anyway. So I added it back to my craft stash. And just making sure I don't have any holes. I'm not going to do the front of the sign, it's already green, so I think I just need to add the moss to the top. But this is how it turned out, our little spring garden with flowers, freestanding. It's pretty durable for a project like this. The dowels worked really well, and look how beautiful those flowers are. I guess if you wanted to add a few more details to the grass, like some more smaller flowers or like different like little fairy garden items, that would be cute too. But I kind of like the simplicity of just the moss at the bottom. For the next new spring DIY, I want to try to DIY with one of these Market Fresh flower signs that I got at the Dollar Tree. It's a wooden hanging sign, but I thought I could do something even better with it. I was thinking I could make it into an actual flower market since it says Market Fresh Flowers, right? So the first thing I did was just remove the hanger on the sign and fill the holes in with a little bit of spackle. And I'm going to do a whitewash on this. I did mine with some white acrylic paint, and then I'm going to kind of wash off the excess paint with baby wipes. You could also mix your white paint in with water, whichever you want to do. Basically, I want to whitewash the entire sign because I want to be able to see that wood burning through it so I can reattach all of that. And I don't want to cover it. So you can see this is what it looks like. You can still see the etching enough to draw it on. I'm going to do that with a Sharpie. So for the Market Fresh, I just go over and start just basically tracing what I see on there. And I'm just doing that with a black, like regular Sharpie. I want the colors on this to be kind of neutral. I do add a little bit of color at the end. And then I'm going to build a great flower market to go underneath of it. Here at the bottom, it says seed, stems, and blooms. So I add that as well. There's a little flower on here, so I thought I would switch up colors. And I'm using a green Sharpie. I love Sharpies for fine details like this over paint pens because they don't tend to blend and they're a little bit more of a finer tip. Now, at first I was trying to stay more neutral with this, so I went in and did the word flowers, which is the biggest part here, with a like bronze colored Sharpie. It almost gives you more of a brown feel, which I like, but then I go back and make the flower market underneath of it, and I used all kinds of bright colors, and I decided that, you know what, I'm going to need to make this more colorful. So I end up changing this to pink, so you'll see that as well. But easy enough to draw that out. I thought it needed a little bit more detail, so I decided to outline mine as well with a black Sharpie. And I'm going to go ahead and whitewash over that again too to make that wood really turn more of a whitewash look. And it's going to weather and distress all of this and make it look a little bit better because my Sharpie skills are not going to be perfect here. But that's okay. I kind of like the handwritten nature of some of the sign. Now to whitewash it, I'm taking a makeup sponge with some more of that white paint. I probably should have thinned it out first, but I thought I could make this work, and I did. And I'm just gently going over. The Sharpie dries pretty quickly, so you're not going to have to worry about a lot of bleeding with that as well. When I go back and make the flowers pink, I did get a little bit more bleeding, but you can see that the Sharpie really kind of holds its color. And I'm just dragging that all over. I want all of this to be white with a little bit of wood showing through and just highly distressed, right? So I just go all over and then I follow that up with a baby wipe to thin it out a little bit. That gives it that whitewashed look. And that's what it looks like so far. Now you can kind of see the edges looked a little sloppy. So I just take that same sponge and take the white paint all the way around to make that look a little bit better. Now we can start building the little flower market. I picked up 3 of the wood trays from Dollar Tree. Just make sure that all 3 of yours are the same size. I noticed going through my stash that I have like 3 different sizes of these. I don't know why they like to change the sizes up a tiny bit. But I need 3 the same size so I can have them all side by side like this, and we can make these into a little flower market. I want them to look like white crates. And so I'm whitewashing them as well. I just go on the inside, all 4 sides with white paint, and then kind of spread it out with a baby wipe, letting some of that wood grain come through. Doesn't have to be perfect. You're really not going to be able to see a lot of that, but I wanted to go ahead and add that detail just in case you could see it anywhere to do the inside of these. And then I'm going to be doing the outside, all the areas that you will be able to see. I'm going to attach these 3 together. Try to make it into look like 6 crates though, since these are kind of tall. And I think that will be easy enough to do with some more Dollar Tree wood products. So I do the same thing on all 3, just going on the inside walls, inside little handles, and then going over the whole thing with a baby wipe to thin it out. Definitely getting lots of white paint all over myself. And that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the outer sides that you're going to be able to see. So you're going to be able to see that side. You're going to be able to see the top. So I paint those and use the baby wipe on this one. This one, you're only going to be able to see the top, and this one, the top and the side. That way I can glue those together without any paint on there. It's going to make it a little bit stronger, I think. So I just put hot glue here on the side, and we're going to glue these side to side. These are going to be standing up kind of like they are right now. And then I want to make them into like 6 sections instead of 3. I just use some of those little crafting clips from the Dollar Tree and attach those together just to help my hot glue dry stronger. And I do the same thing for that one. The glue does dry pretty fast anyway. And then to add the sections. Now you could use paint stir sticks for this. It might be a little cheaper, but I like to use items from the Dollar Tree. I think it makes it easier for you guys to find stuff. And so I'm going to use some of the Dollar Tree wood rulers. As you can see, they're not long enough to go all the way across, but I think we can make it work by cutting some of them down. So I can do 3 rows like that, like a top, a bottom, and a middle to make like little crate sections. So I'm going to cut it about halfway in between those 2. And I did 3 that length of the ruler just by cutting them down on my saw. Then I'm going to need just a piece that's long enough for one of the crates. And I'm going to kind of make this random, just using some leftover rulers I have here. I use these for crafting all the time. I love them. Just remove the stickers and you have some great crafting wood. And I'm going to glue the first one here, connecting the first 2 crates like this. I'm just leaving that piece long. I don't mind that it is longer than the other side's going to be. And I do the top and the bottom on the same side, going all the way to the edges. And then for the middle one, I'm actually going to have it line up on the right, so it'll look a little bit more random, like crates would. And I attach it with hot glue there on all 3 of the bends. Or I guess 2 of the bends. And doing the same thing over here with the smaller pieces. I'm just gluing it to the edges. And I can always go back and paint these as well to make it match with our little flower market that we're making. But I wanted to go ahead and get everything glued on first. And that worked out pretty well. So I'm just going to do that same whitewash that I did on everything else. So a layer of white acrylic and a baby wipe following that up. At first I thought about putting shelves in there, but I'm going to be filling this up with Dollar Tree florals, little tiny flowers. Don't really think I'm going to need the shelves. So I think it will work just by having like this pallet board design. And just like that. Now I did think about covering the holes on the sides of the trays. That's going to be in there on the top. But what I ended up doing was just filling that with flowers too, making it look like it's overflowing. I'm using 2 more of the Dollar Tree wood rulers to attach the sign. The sign is pretty large and heavy, so I want to make sure that it is secure. And I thought these would definitely be heavy duty, a lot more heavy duty than like a popsicle stick. I just line it up there by making sure I have something for it to sit on so it's kind of level there with the back of the crates. And I cut it down a little bit just to get the circle off of it, the little cutout, but totally optional. And I'm just using the flat side and attaching that to the back, and it provided a really nice, strong base for that big sign. I'm going to reinforce it with a couple of staples for my staple gun as well. And this little flower market is actually pretty sturdy. This is what it looks like so far. It really looks like it needs a lot of flowers. I decided to go in with a little bit of moss first. So this is that brown floral moss from the Dollar Tree. You could use whatever moss they have. It's going to be a great filler in there to add the flowers. So, the back of it, you really can't really end up seeing it too much anyway. So that looks pretty good. No shelves necessary. I can just put the flowers down into the moss like this. So these are some little tiny flowers that I found at Dollar Tree. I try to stick with some of the smaller ones. I always purposely buy small flowers for spring crafting because you need them in so many different things. Dollar Tree spring flowers and flowers in general are usually a lot bigger. But if you look this time of year, you should be able to find some smaller ones like these. So I'm going to do this like bright pink color, which ends up being my inspiration for the flowers word. I'm going to make that pink to match those flowers. I have some of the same flowers in this great like purple and white and yellow. And you can have them kind of go underneath that ruler, kind of popping out. That way you get a flower on the bottom and on the top like that and make your flowers go a little bit farther. And I'm just going to keep alternating colors. I want this to be bright and colorful for spring. I had some little tiny purple flowers. And I use these every year for spring crafting. So I had a lot of like partial flowers that I've saved the rest. And then I'm going to add a little bit of greenery that was on the flower as well. Might as well, since it's there, just by cutting it into little individual pieces. And then I decided to add a little blue, which I don't normally do for spring crafting, but I thought this was really pretty. These are called wildflowers, and they're little tiny blue flowers. Are shaped a little bit different, but I like the variety. And we start piling them in there. I want this to look like it's overflowing with flowers, like a flower market. And this is going to be like a freestanding flower market that it's going to be an actually pretty big DIY that will decorate a lot of space for spring. It's looking pretty good. That's when I decided, you know what, that sign is not colorful enough. So I'm going to fix it with a pink Sharpie, I thought. But as you can see, the pink over that brownish color still kind of muted. So I went in with a pink paint pen and we're just going to make this work. Now, one thing about distressing the pink paint pen, though, is you definitely need to let it dry. It will bleed if you try to distress over it. But I'm just trying to go in and fill in the areas that I had previously made that bronze color. It almost looks like a gray color with the white distressing on top. But I really think this packed a punch with a little bit of color there. And of course, the big flowers word would be the best one if you wanted to add some color to it. I dried it and then I went over and outlined it again just because some of the areas I had accidentally kind of went over the outline that was already on there and I thought it was going to be a little bit hidden now. So I just went ahead and outlined all of them with a black Sharpie again. And I'm going to go over and distress that with the white again to make it look whitewashed and distressed, of course, but definitely want it to kind of pop before you do that so it'll kind of shine through like everything else. Just a few more details to make it look good. And then I used my white little sponge again to whitewash this. And just be really careful because you don't want that pink bleeding into it when you use your baby wipe like this. So I had to try to be really careful to make that not happen. You might want to use a brush. It might work better actually than a sponge for that because you can kind of drag it over the letters. But I love the way this is looking. I did not like those openings there in the top though. I thought I could either do another ruler there to cover those or I could just use them as little vases for more flowers. So I had a few of those flowers left. I'm just going to go ahead, cut those into individual pieces. So we can fill those up with flowers as well. I want to use some of the same flowers here that I already used. So it kind of makes sense. And just given in these little flowers, you don't have to iron too much, but that one was kind of fighting me. And I didn't have any more of the pink, so I decided to borrow some of the pinks, move them up, and just kind of use whatever I had. Even if it's like a little bit of greenery. On the two sides, I can have it kind of go up a little bit. In the middle, I don't want to go super tall because I don't want to cover up the seed stems and blooms words. but just a little bit more arranging. And I'm glad I did that because it's a flower market. So the more flowers, the better, right? A little few more touches of greenery, and this DIY is almost complete. Isn't this so bright and colorful? A really fun idea to use one of those flower signs. Now, if you don't have the flower sign, I think you could totally get away with it. You can make your own flower sign pretty easily. Doesn't have to be that shape, of course. And we made all of these great crates here, just using 3 of those trays from the Dollar Tree. Isn't it really colorful and fun? I would definitely recommend the smaller flowers like this because you can get a lot more in there. And there it is, our little flower market. Okay, we're going to switch things up and we're going to switch to bee DIYs. I have made 9 new bee DIYs in 2025 and they turned out so cute. Enjoy these. For the first bee DIY, you only need 3 things. You're going to need one of the honeycomb chargers from Dollar Tree, one of their new metal garden signs. This one is gold and I think it's beautiful. The painting is really good on it. It says welcome, and some Dollar Tree brown rope. I thought combining this little metal sign together with one of these gold honeycomb chargers from the Dollar Tree would make a really beautiful, kind of large wall hanging. So this DIY could not be any simpler. I'm going to DIY a little hanger here on the back, and I'm going to try the paper clip and felt method. This is a great way to hang plates on the wall, and this is pretty lightweight, so I think that this is going to work pretty well. So I just take a little paper clip I also got from Dollar Tree, and I bent it slightly, and I'm going to put it right there at the base, on the top of the base of the plate. And I'm also going to cut out a piece of felt, and I'm just going to cut out like an oval, somewhat round shape here that will fit in there, and that's going to help reinforce this hanger. And this was such a quick way to make a hanger and very inexpensive. First, I glue down the little paper clip where I want it, and then I put more hot glue right on top, and I'm going to lay that felt on there. The felt really does help reinforce the bond and make a strong hanger there on the back, and I didn't have to mess up the plastic charger in any way. So that looks good. The charger itself is beautiful. I don't need to do anything to it. And look how perfectly the little garden sign fits right on top. They have a whole bunch of these different garden signs. We're going to be DIYing 2 of them today. I really love them. I think they're so pretty. I just do a bead of hot glue all the way around. Of course, that's not going to be really sturdy and you can see it. So then once I get that glued on, I'm going to go around with the Dollar Tree brown rope. I love using rope with all my bee DIYs. I use it a lot. I think it really goes well together. And this is going to form like a perfect bond between that metal sign and the plastic because metal and hot glue don't usually work well together anyway. So this is going to be glued to the metal sign and also to the plastic charger. It is a little rough though, so the first thing I do is I cut off a piece long enough and then I just go over it with a lighter to burn off any of the fuzzies on there. And I'm just going to start here at the bottom, try to make the transition as seamless as possible as I go all the way around. And I can do about a quarter of it at a time before my hot glue starts to set up. So I just glue that on there. And it goes with the bee theme. It adds a little bit of texture to the sign and it really helps this bond to keep this on because this is going to be hanging on the wall and I don't want it to fall apart. I've noticed with metal, you can glue metal and plastic together, but it usually doesn't last very long with hot glue. And so I'm just going to cut this exactly how long I need it to be so it'll blend in here at the end. And we're going to finish this off. I told you this DIY was going to be easy and it really is. And it's so pretty. The gold of the charger and the gold of that sign really work well together. If you're not able to find the honeycomb charger, I think you could probably do this with any of them. Maybe even like the wood look one will look really pretty as well as a background. But a fun way to take that little garden sign and bring it inside and make a fun piece of decor for your house. Isn't this so cute? I really like using gold for bee decor. I think it looks really pretty together. And the rope is not super noticeable, but it does definitely serve a really good purpose on there of keeping this all connected. And I think it's really fun. I thought about putting some like reindeer moss underneath of it, kind of as a background, but I really liked the gold and I like how it shines through the flowers and stuff like that. Hey guys, if you're enjoying today's video, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't. Next bee DIY, we're going to use another one of the garden signs. This is the one that says Simply Bee. It's also got a gold border. And I'm going to try a different approach for this one. I found these little wood rounds at Dollar Tree the other day. You get 3 circles for $1.25, which is great because I'm always trying to find circles. And I think it's going to be a perfect background for this. It's going to fit nicely inside the garden sign, just like that. You could also cut out some cardboard to fit in there or scrapbook paper or something like that. But what I wanted was a warm stained wood look. So since this is wood, I'm going to stain it with some antique wax by Waverly. I just go over it kind of with one coat. I don't want too much on there. And I'm going to kind of blend it in with a baby wipe. And look at that beautiful wood grain on that little wood round from the Dollar Tree. Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. I wanted that warmth behind it. And I want to try to take away some of the metal aspects of the sign and make it look more like a home decor piece. So the first thing I'm going to do is attach this to it. I know that, the metal is not going to want to hot glue well on here, especially for a wall hanging. So I decided to use some of Dollar Tree's like double-sided tape. I think this might be a little bit stronger to hold this on than using hot glue. So I kind of put them around where it will make contact with it. And, the hanger is already on the metal sign, so it doesn't have to be super strong. I just need it to stay on there to provide the background. Now, the frame of this one is scratched up a little bit, and I wanted, again, to make this one a little bit warmer, add lots of fun textures. So the first thing I'm going to do is wrap the entire frame with twine. One of the bees does kind of poke out a little bit, so I'm actually just going to work around it. I don't want to cover up the wing of that bee. And I'm going to start here. I thought I started as close as I could to the frame, but I do go in and do another row of twine inside of this to completely cover it. But just kind of working 1/4 of a section at a time, I'm adding the hot glue and just gluing this down. This is the twine from Dollar Tree. It's probably the thicker of the two that I usually find there. And I have you guys ask all the time where I found my twine holder, and I get those at Dollar Tree. They are yarn holders, and I found them in the Crafter's Square. Some of my larger Dollar Trees carry them. I don't know if I found them at all of them, but they're great for twine, especially my workbench can get like sawdust and stuff like that on there from using my saw, and it keeps it nice and clean, and it makes it really easy to work with, and you don't have to worry about finding the end of it. So I did 3 or 2, I guess, individual rows of the twine, and then I started a third one. This time I can go all the way around. So it gets a little bit easier when I'm not working around that one bee wing I was trying to avoid, because I can just keep spiraling this out. So I just add a little bit of hot glue to each section. I'm using that Surebonder hot glue gun. This is a newer hot glue gun I got on Amazon. I'll have to add this to my Amazon shop. It's a lot cheaper than the Ryobi one, and I was having trouble with my Ryobi one, and this one does not squirt out quite as much hot glue, which is great because that one was a little heavy on the hot glue. So I'm going all the way around. I want to make sure that you can't see any of the gold. I really love that wood background and then the twine on the outside. I think it's looking really cute. So I go all the way up here at the top. I'm going to go ahead and stop and transition that. I can go around with a lighter and burn off any fuzzies. And I think it's looking really cute. I do want to add a few more details to it to make a fun little wall hanging for my wall. One thing is you can still see the metal on the sides like that. And I thought we could make that look warmer by adding some Dollar Tree rope. It's going to be easier than using the twine on the sides as well, and it's going to blend in really well together. So I just take a piece of that Dollar Tree rope. I'm going to start here at the bottom and just hot glue that all the way around. It is about the same width of the sign, and it framed it out really nicely. I think it looks so cute. I don't think you can really tell that it's a garden sign at all at this point. All of the fun textures and the cute little bee image on there and the Simply Bee. I really like that phrase. I haven't seen that on a Dollar Tree sign before. Again, I'm going to cut it and blend this in at the bottom. And then I clean off any fuzzies on that with a lighter. Anytime you're working with this rope and twine, it really does need to be cleaned up a little bit with a lighter, especially that twine from Walmart I have found. Now, I wanted to add some flowers or something to this to add a little bit more character, but I didn't want anything too crazy. So I thought some of these little burlap sticker flowers from Dollar Tree would be cute. This is like the little burlap flower with like little twine petals. I thought that would be cute. So I thought three of them kind of going up the side here. It won't cover up any of the bees. And I just attach those with hot glue. If you have any of the little wood bees from Dollar Tree, those might be cute on here as well. I glued three on there and I like it, but I thought it needed a little bit of color. So I'm actually going to take off the middle one and replace it with an actual Dollar Tree yellow flower just to provide a little pop of color. So just using my heat gun, I'm going to pop that off and cut the stem off so it doesn't stick out too far and glue one of these little yellow mums. This is one of the spring flowers that I just got from the Dollar Tree. And I think the yellow goes well with the bee theme. And this is how it turned out, our little Simply Bee sign. Really cute. I love all the little added touches here in the twine. It does take a little bit of time to glue that twine around, but it provided a really beautiful frame. And I like the stained wood behind it too. I think it makes it look really rustic, and I love the wood and the ropes again with bee DIYs. I think they look really good together. Now, for the next DIY, I found this great stepping stone at Dollar Tree the other day, and one of these new candle holders. It's a taper candle holder. As you can see, I kind of want to do mine upside down because it's going to have a flatter surface to be able to glue to the Dollar Tree stepping stone. What I want to do is make a little candle holder, a little bee candle holder for a candle. Now, I'm not completely sure this resin is heat safe, so take that into consideration if you're going to use a real candle like I did. I found that they had these in yellow, white, and purple, I think, these new stepping stones with the bees on them. They have a lot of styrofoam here on the outer edges to keep it from chipping, but I did notice that mine did still have chips a little bit here and there. So I have a bright yellow paint. I'm just going to go around and kind of touch up any of the areas where you see a little bit of the white coming through. And it's a little small for a stepping stone. I find that the Dollar Tree stepping stones are usually pretty small. They are really cute though and decorative. And I think when I saw this, I just thought, ooh, that'd be a great candle holder. So once I get it touched up, I did notice that my bees were painted pretty good. There was one here that needed a little bit of a touch up. So just going to use some yellow and black paint to touch that up. The candle holder is already black, so it's perfect. I don't have to do anything to that. And I want a strong glue. So I went around with some Gorilla Glue, and this is the bottom of the candlestick. And then I add some hot glue too. And I'm going to glue that together with the stepping stone. I knew I would need like a heavy duty glue like that since I am gluing on the stepping stone and I want this to be sturdy because I'm actually going to put a real candle on mine. The candle that I chose is one of the honeycomb candles from Dollar Tree. I thought that'd be perfect for the bee theme. If you want to be safe, you could always use one of the Dollar Tree candle holders like that and put it on there like that. But I really wanted you to be able to see the honeycomb on here. So I'm going to do mine without the candle holder so you can kind of see the honeycomb. So this is the candle. I'm going to center it right here on the top of the flower. I put a little hot glue on the bottom of my candle so it would stay put. And I love these candles. I've seen these in, this is kind of a more of a honey color, but I've seen them in like yellow and white as well. Any of them I think would look really cute on here, or just a white candle would look fine too. But I thought this made a really fun little bee candle holder. It was so easy to put together. Just a couple items from the Dollar Tree and some glue. It seems like it's a perfect size scale for this as well. And I really like those new wood candle holders like that. They have a little bit different shape than the ceramic ones. For the next DIY, I found this the Bee's Knees Honey Company flower pot at Dollar Tree, and I love it. It's a galvanized metal. It's distressed perfectly, and it's got like a white distress over the front of it. I'm going to use that and one of their bee yard stakes to do a really cute little bee themed floral display. Now, this is a yardstick, so it's a little bit long for a pick for a flower pot, but we're just going to make it that way. So I figure out about how long I want it to be, and just using some pliers, I bent it, and this actually broke off really easily. I bent it all the way like this, and then pulling it back, it just broke right off. I like this bee. It's a little colorful, especially compared to that pot. So we are going to be painting this, kind of toning it down, making it go a little bit better with the pot. The first thing I did is I wanted to paint the wings. So I'm just using a silver acrylic and one of those little stencil sponge brushes. and just kind of going all over. It was kind of a rainbow finish on there before, but I want it to coordinate a little bit more with what the flower pot looks like. And we will be painting this a little bit more too to coordinate with the flowers that we add to the flower pot as well. I'm going to show you how to do this with faux flowers from the Dollar Tree, but you could also do this with a real plant as well. That would be beautiful. I found two of those flower pots from the Dollar Tree, this one and one that was more white with the galvanized metal bees all over it. I got both of them because they're so cute. Since it's going to be outside, I'm going to weigh it down with just some extra stones I have from the Dollar Tree to make the bottom of it heavy. And then I'm just going to use some Dollar Tree floral foam to fill it up. I didn't really have anything that was specific to the size to this flower pot. So we're just going to put it together. I ended up using 3 pieces. I do have to cut the corners off of these though to get into that round pot to make it fit. But it's going to give me lots of area to be able to put the faux floral and greenery into and fill up the pot. For the top, I just used some of their green floral moss here for the top, just in case you can see in there. I don't want you to be able to see any of the foam. And I'm probably going to display this on the little table next to my front door. I think it's going to be really pretty for spring or even summer. For the flowers, I'm using these daisies that I got at the Dollar Tree. They're in with the spring flowers right now. And just using my wire cutter, I'm just going to cut them into individual pieces. I thought I was going to need a lot because the flower pot was pretty full, but the flowers themselves are really large, so I only had to use one package. As you can see, they are all kind of bent up, so I'm just using my heat gun to give them a quick iron. It makes the Dollar Tree flowers look so much better. It's like giving them a little ironing, and I find that that helps. On these daisies, there's a little variation to how they're made. Some of them have some shorter petals there in the middle, but I just kind of work one at a time. I found it a little bit easier to give them their little iron before I put them in the pot and kind of scattered them all over. And then we can have some more greenery added to it, and we can add that little bee yard stake into the middle. See how full one batch of that really filled it up? Now, this is some of the greenery from the Dollar Tree right now. It's not labeled as eucalyptus, but I think it's like the eucalyptus. And I'm going to cut these into individual pieces too and just kind of spread these around. I like this because it added a little bit of green, a little bit of a bush variety to this when there's leaves on the flowers, but you really can't see them at all. So I think this provides just a little bit more fun and color to this little DIY. And I love these flower pots. I was really inspired by this one. I think it's so cute. And the little DIY we do to the bee on here really makes it all go together. The first thing I'm going to do is it has golden stripes and I want mine to be bright yellow just because I used bright yellow flowers. To make it brighter, I go over it with white acrylic first. Then I'm going to go over it with some bright yellow. That way it's going to make it pop and not be toned down because this color of yellow can really take in any like dark colors that you might see underneath of it. And so I try to just work with some thinner coats. It's pretty easy to clean these up if you kind of go outside your line, but I'm just going to paint those on. I'm going to leave like the black part of the bee intact. I think that looks fine, but I really wanted the yellow to pop to really coordinate well with the flowers. So just a couple thin coats over that. And I also want to paint the wings a little bit more too, so they look distressed a little bit like the flower pot. To do that, I'm just going to use some white acrylic and a little makeup sponge. I'm just going to sponge kind of dragging it over the texture there on the wing to make it stand out a little bit, but also to age it, make it look like that galvanized metal aging, very similar to the pot. Maybe a little bit more distressing. And I think it looks really cute like this. So I'm just going to put this into the foam as well, right here in the middle, kind of like it's flying off to the side just a little bit. This was such an easy DIY. It just screams spring and summer to me with the bee, the bright yellows, the greenery, and the flower pot is so cute. Let me show you the flower pot so you can read it. It says local honey, the bee's knees, honey company. Isn't it so cute? Harvested daily. I love it. It was a really fun DIY to make, and I love a good bee DIY. For the next one, I picked up one of these garden signs from the Dollar Tree, a spring sign that says welcome, has a honeybee on there, and two of their wood shelves from the Dollar Tree, and one of the burlap rolls with the honeycomb on there. I think that's so cute. I love all of the bee themed burlaps. They're so fun to craft bee DIYs with. Now, for the sign itself, I'm going to make it with two of these shelves. I think it's going to be the perfect size. And I love crafting with these from the Dollar Tree. They're the little hanging wall shelves because they're nice and thick. They don't bow very easily. And they're made out of real wood, so you can stain them and stuff if you want to. I'm going to be covering this one with burlap to give us a fun background. To attach it, they're thick enough to be able to just glue them together. So I just do a bead of hot glue and push the two signs together, and it's sturdier than you might think. I don't really have to reinforce it or anything like that. And I thought that would be the perfect size for that little welcome bee sign. Now, to cover it with burlap, this is the burlap from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to unroll it. The only thing I don't like about how they package it is that it's really wrinkled, right? So to work with it a little bit easier, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over and just iron it with my Cricut Easy Press here. I don't get all of the wrinkles out of it, but I get enough of it out of that makes it easier to work with. And this is a pretty large sign, so I'm going to be using most of this burlap to cover it. So that looks better. I'm also going to cut out a piece that's a little bit larger than what I need, and then I can kind of cut it down to size. I want to line up the honeycombs the best that I can, so I could kind of see through it where I could kind of line up what would be like horizontal or even lining them up and down. And then I'm going to cover the entire board with Mod Podge, and you're going to need more than you think with this. I did like 2 or 3 coats. I wanted to make sure that I could attach the burlap to it without having to add any Mod Podge on top. You can usually tell that it has glue on it, so I wanted that not to be very visible. And I tried to line it up the best that I can and smooth it out with just a paper towel to and make it have contact with all of the glue and get rid of any like bubbling or anything like that. I used my heat gun to dry it, and now we can cut this down to size. I'm just going to use some sharp scissors and try to get as close to the wood as I can. I don't want you to be able to see any of the wood sign, but I also don't want it to have any raveling or anything like that like burlap does. Usually just having the Mod Podge there around the edge is enough to seal that and prevent that from raveling out. But I'm just going to go around and cut it all the way around. I think this is going to be a really fun background for that little bee sign. Now, this does have holes already in it that you can use for a hanger, and I think I'll do that just so I won't have to add a hanger to the back. I'm just making sure all the corners are glued down and I don't have any raveling on the sides. And then I go in and just kind of find out where the holes are on the sign and just poke them in there. I like to use the little Cricut weeder from Dollar Tree to poke some holes in there so I can then add some twine to make a hanger. I'm using kind of the thicker twine for this, so it's a little bit challenging to get it through those holes sometimes. What I do is usually put a little hot glue here on the tip, and it keeps it from fraying. It makes it a little bit sturdier to be able to hold up to going through that little wood hole there, and then I tie it on the front. And I'm going to do the same thing here on the other side. I wanted to go ahead and do the hanger before I start adding stuff to it. And again, I'm going to burn off the fuzzies on this because it was a little wild looking. And definitely add some hot glue on the tip of this one too. And if you do kind of get it in there and it does start getting stuck a little bit like this one did, a pair of pliers can work to help pull that through without causing any damage. And I just knot it here on the front. Now it's time to add our little bee sign to this. I think the honeycomb is a nice subtle backdrop for it. This is a hanging sign, and so I'm just going to cut off the twine hanger on here, and I'll actually use those holes to attach it to the wood sign. It's a nice sturdy sign, so I can use some tacks to tack it down. I'm using the little velvet push pins from Dollar Tree, and the board is pretty hard, so I'm going to have to use a hammer to put this in here. When I start to hammer mine in, I did notice that this one, the velvet part, like broke off. But then I kind of liked it like that. Like it is a really fun brass color. And so I was like, I'll just kind of go with that. And I'll break my other one on purpose too. So just making sure it is level. I hammer this one in and break off the little velvet top on it. The last step I want to do is frame it, and I'm going to do that with some of the Dollar Tree brown rope. It's going to just kind of tie everything in together, and I just love using rope for bee crafting. So I'm going to start actually on the corner. Sometimes I don't because it can get a little tricky to round that corner if you're going to use one piece of rope all the way around like I did. But this one actually seemed to work pretty well. So I do a bead of hot glue here on the bottom, and I overlap the end just a little bit with my rope. And I'm just going to continue that all the way around. You could cut 4 individual pieces, but then you're going to have to deal with the fraying rope on all 4 corners. And I think it looks a little cleaner when you have the rounded edges like this. For the top, I just make sure that my hanger is kind of tucked underneath my sign so it doesn't get caught in my hot glue. And I just go all the way around. Here at the end, I'm just going to use some hot glue to blend that last corner to make it look rounded as well. And it actually worked out pretty well. I think I did a good job of cutting like the perfect length there, just using a little hot glue and blending that together. Super cute, a welcome sign. This would look great next to your front door or even on your door for spring or summer. Really a fun design, and it's painted so well for a Dollar Tree sign. I'm just burning off any fuzzies on that rope, and this is how it turned out, our little welcome bee sign. As you can see, that sign is really beautiful, and I love using the burlaps. They also have like the burlaps with like the black, all black bee on there, and then they have the burlaps with the black and yellow bees on there. I thought about using one of those, but I really like the simplicity of just the honeycomb since I already have a big bee there on the sign. For this bee DIY, we're going to use one of the bee garden flags from the Dollar Tree and 2 of their wooden shelves. I want to take this really cute little design that says, "Hey there, honeybee," and make really cute like wall decor for inside my house. So I've used these little wall shelves before, maybe the skinnier ones that are a little bit thicker to make an outdoor wall hanging where I included the entire like garden flag on a DIY. But I thought I wanted this one to be smaller, so I'm just going to use 2 of those wood shelves together to make a rectangular sign, and we can dress it up a little bit too. So I love crafting with these little wall shelves because they're nice and thick. They're like real wood, and you can put them together. So I just did a bead of hot glue there on one and just pushed them together, trying to make sure that I didn't have any like excess hot glue sticking out. And I think this is my best side to DIY. They are a little rough with the carvings where the holes are here for the shelves. So I'm just going to give them a quick sand so that you won't have any bumpiness there when I attach the flag. I want like this part where it says, "Hey there, honeybee." I don't really care about the top and the bottom, and I'm okay with the buffalo check being on the side, so because kind of needed to be there to make it wide enough. Now to attach it, I'm just using matte Mod Podge. I'm doing like a rather thicker coat here because it's kind of an outdoor material. It's kind of shiny, and I want to make sure that it stays on. So I used a nice thick coat and then kind of position it on there. The Mod Podge is really wet, so you have plenty of time to kind of maneuver it, move it around until you get it exactly where you want it. I want all of my words to be on there, nothing cut out, and it to be centered onto the wood boards. I'm just going to dry that off with a dry paper towel to smooth it out and also go over it with my hands to make sure there's really no bubbling or anything like that that might show up later. I also go in with my heat gun and give it a quick dry, and we can go ahead and start cutting the excess fabric off. I am going to frame this out too so it doesn't have like rough, crazy edges, but I do want a fairly clean cut on this. Now, this material, I tried it first with a razor blade here to just cut the excess material. I thought I could probably get closer like that, and it did work, but it was kind of hard to get it like really close to the wood. So I did have to do a little bit of trimming there to get it a little bit closer. And this is not all the way dry yet, so I could still kind of maneuver it a little bit. For the other side though, I just decided to do scissors. I thought that that was going to be easier and work a little bit better. I just kind of turned it over and cut as close to the wood as I possibly could. And this is what we have so far. This is such a fun way to make a personalized sign like this. It's already got a really cute theme with the sunflower and the bees and the saying. I'm just going to go ahead and poke holes here in the top since it already had holes on the hanging shelf. I'm just going to poke those in that garden flag material so I can string up a new hanger. And I wanted to do that first before I frame it out because I don't want that to get in the way. I just string it in here from behind and tie it in the front. I did make sure to have plenty of Mod Podge on the corner so that none of that lifted up. That's kind of the most crucial part there. And then make sure your holes are definitely large enough in there so you can get your twine through there cleanly. And I just tied it off on the other side. So this is what we have so far. I think it's a great starter piece. And I want to frame it out. I have some Dollar Tree rope. I think this is the thicker one of the two. It's a little bit shorter, but I think it's plenty to go around this size sign. I'm just going to start in one corner here. I just removed the tape off the end, and we're just going to use hot glue to glue it here. I love using rope with bee crafts. I always try to include it. I think it looks really good together. And I like using rope for frames for like Dollar Tree signs like this. It just gives it a finished edge without having to do any framing or anything like that. I'm just going to take that same piece of Dollar Tree rope and we're going to go around all four sides with that. And I'll show you how I kind of blend it when I get back down here to the corner. We're also going to add some more items to this to really make this sign special. And I love how this turned out. I love the saying. And I found I got like at least 3 bee garden flags at Dollar Tree this year for crafting. And I think that they have a pretty good selection. So here at the end, I kind of cut it a little bit at an angle, and then I added hot glue. If you let that cool off a little bit, you can mold it and get that curved corner like on all the rust. Then I just go over it with a lighter to burn off any fuzzies, clean it up a little bit. It wasn't too bad. Now I wanted to add to it, it's already got like that great sunflower on it and the sunflowers in the corner, but I thought it'd be really cute to make it look 3D. So I picked up like one of the large sunflowers from Dollar Tree. This one's pretty massive. And I just take it off the stem and I'm gonna cut off the plastic stem. This one doesn't make the flower fall apart when you do that. So I can attach it like that. I'm not going to add any greenery. I'm just going to use the greenery that was on the sign already. But I just used hot glue to attach that. It was the perfect size. And I also wanted to attach some bees. I wasn't able to find the wood bees from Dollar Tree this year, so I ordered a bag of these on Amazon, and they're pretty similar. They're just little wooden beads. They're pretty inexpensive. I'll be sure to add those to my Amazon shop if you're in the market for those. I got them within a day, and they're really great for crafting. So I just add one with hot glue, kind of spinning this around a little bit so it's a little bit more symmetrical, the center of the sunflower. And I'm just going to glue a couple little bees on here. I thought that would really make the theme and really make the sign special. I think I'm going to hang this in my kitchen area for spring. And I guess I could even use it for summer as well. This is how it turned out. Their little hey there honeybee sign using a garden flag from the Dollar Tree, a couple of wood shelves, a sunflower, and some rope. I love it. I think it turned out really cute. What do you guys think about this one? If you're enjoying today's video, be sure to hit that like button. It always helps my videos do better here on YouTube, and don't forget to subscribe. Okay, the next bee DIY, I found this little vase in the Crafter Square at Dollar Tree. It's an unfinished ceramic, but I thought it looked just like a beehive or a bee skep, and I thought this would be a really cute little vase to make. It's kind of on the smaller size, so think a cabinet, a tier tray, something like that. It would be really cute. And it's unfinished ceramic. I want the white color on there, but I also need to seal it since it is an unfinished ceramic. And I'm just doing that with some matte Mod Podge to seal that rough ceramic so that I can go over and distress it more. I want to make it look brown and distressed, kind of like a beehive would look. So I did go over it with a couple of coats of Mod Podge, drying in between. I just wanted to make sure it was really sealed. I know that the ceramic items like this from the Dollar Tree can be a little bit hard to paint. And I'm not necessarily going to paint it. I'm going to more distress it. And I didn't want to paint it white since it's already white. So a couple of coats on there, and the way that I'm going to distress it is some antique wax by Waverly. I kind of struggled a little bit on this. I'll end up showing you what worked a little bit better. I started going in like side to side like this, which made it a little bit challenging with all of the ridges on there, but I just went ahead and went over the entire vase with some of that antique wax by Waverly, and my plan is to wipe a lot of that off and leave a distressed finish. So I've got pretty good coverage there. Let me go ahead and do the top as well, so I don't forget that. And then I went in with a baby white. Now, the problem with this, I don't know, maybe I sealed it too well. Most of it came off. I did get like a light distressing, but I want it to be a little bit more distressed, but I've already kind of started that process. So I went ahead and used my wipe all over, and I'll just add some more antique wax by Waverly. I tried again to add like another coat here and just to stress it a little bit more all over, wiping it off with a baby wipe again, but I kind of got the same result. So I changed it up and decided to go up and down like this. And that was the trick to distressing this with the shape of the outside of the vase. And see how much better that worked? And I did still kind of, wipe it with my baby wipe and distress it. I just want even coverage all over and kind of sponging it on instead. And that's the look that I was going for. And maybe I sealed it too well. But this is the look I was going for. I'm just making sure that it is evenly distressed all over. You can always add more. And then a little bit more here on the top. Now, the antique wax by Waverly, when you use it like a paint like this, is a little bit harder to dry. I gave mine a little bit of assistance with my heat gun to get it started drying, and it actually dried faster than I thought it would because I do want to go in and paint it a little bit more. I want like an opening in the beehive or bee skep, so I just use a black paint pen and I'm going to do a circle. So I kind of like sketch out where I kind of think the circle is going to go and try to draw a circle on there. It doesn't really matter if you get a perfect circle because as you're filling that in with paint, you can always kind of reshape your circle a little bit. Circles are hard, especially on a surface like this. And I'm just going to go in there. I'm trying not to disturb any of the antique wax by Waverly, but the Posca pens in general work really well. So my circle is not super symmetrical. So once I got it on there, I did kind of go around the edges, try to make it look a little bit more like a circle if I can. And we're also going to add some bees to this before we add our spring florals. I think that looks really cute. I'm going to use those same wooden beads that I got on Amazon. I have got those before at Dollar Tree. Have any of you guys seen them at Dollar Tree this year? I have not found them, but somebody may have wiped them out before I got there. And they do have little stickers on them, but for crafting, I like it to be a little bit stronger, so I just peel those off, add a little bit of hot glue. I find that that works a little bit better. And I'm going to scatter them around the beehive like they are coming into the beehive, kind of in a random pattern, wherever I think one looks really good. I was trying to decide if I usually like to work with odd numbers, so I was thinking 3, but then I went in and decided to add 4 because I thought they looked really cute. And we're going to do a nice spring flower in this vase to kind of go with the bee theme. I really like using yellow flowers if I can, or white and yellow flowers with bees. I think it really goes well with the theme and looks really cute for spring. So I think 4 is definitely enough. It's looking really cute. I've made a similar beehive vase like this with Dollar Tree rope in a previous DIY video, a much larger version of this. This is kind of a smaller scale, and I think this vase I found at Dollar Tree works perfectly. So I just put a little bit of sand there in the bottom of my vase, and I found these little mini daisies that are yellow and brown, so I think they're perfect for the bee theme. I'm just going to cut them apart, making sure to leave the greenery on them, kind of just scooting that up, and we're going to fill this all the way up. I probably didn't need to use all of them, but I wanted it to be nice and full, so I went ahead and used them all. I have so many extra florals in my crafting stash. I really need to use them all sometimes. And that looks really cute. I'm going to give them a little blow dry to make sure that they are not bent and they're looking their best. And here it is, our little beehive or bee skep vase. I think is perfect. When I saw this vase at the Dollar Tree, This is exactly what I saw, and I just love how it turned out. So let me give you a little close-up view of our little beehive vase. Those little bees from Amazon are really cute, and I think they really add to it. Isn't that adorable? It's not very big. It's probably like maybe about 6 or 7 inches in total. For this spring bee DIY, I wanted to make a giant sunflower wreath for my front door, and I'm going to use one of the bunny wreath forms for this. Now, you really don't have to have the bunny wreath form. You could just use one of the medium size or smaller wreath forms like this. Now, the inspiration that I saw uses 5 or 6 of these bunny wreath forms, and they stack them all on top of each other. There's no way I'm going to be able to find that many in Dollar Tree, and I wouldn't want to wipe them all out anyway. And so I was able to find one, and I'm just going to use some wired jute from the Dollar Tree to make the rest of my petals. Now, this was definitely way more work than probably stacking 5 or 6 of them on top of each other, but I'll show you how I made mine. For the wired jute, I'm just cutting a piece that is going to be a little bit longer than the bunny ear, right? And I'm using masking tape on this because I know how this likes to fall off the wire, the twine from the Dollar Tree, and this trick worked really well. You're not going to be able to see the ends of these anyway, so I can leave the tape on there. I just put the tape on there and cut it about halfway, and I'm going to go ahead and cut a second one here as well. I just taped every single one. I didn't want it to be too thick, but I do want it to be tight here. And I'm just using wire cutters to cut that wire inside of it. And it was actually able to cut through everything. So that made it a little bit easier, and I didn't have to worry about the twine falling off of the wire. And I wasn't sure how many I was going to do. I know a lot of people do 6 of the bunny wreaths on top of each other, so that's a total of 12 petals. They're really kind of close together like that, so I think I ended up doing 10. Yes, 10 petals, and that includes the 2 bunny ears. So I need to cut 8 of these. I could get about 3 out of 1 package, and then the 4th piece wasn't long enough. So I'm just going to continue this on and kind of cut just a few at a time, and I can always cut more later. I didn't want to make too many. But this was probably the most labor-intensive part of this wreath DIY, was cutting all of these pieces and wiring them to the wreath form. Since I bent them in half like that, it was really easy to get that bunny ear or petal shape. And I made them a little longer so I would have enough wire to go around the wreath form. I'm just going to have it go around the middle wreath, the middle wreath form, that center one. And I'm going to wrap it around a few times to hold it on there. And that seemed to work. It does kind of want to come out a little bit, so I do end up gluing that twine down to the outer ring as well. And it worked pretty well. Now, if you were going to do the 5 or 6 bunny wreaths on top, if you want to do it kind of the easier way, I have seen other people do theirs. And what they end up doing is cutting out that center part of the wreath, the center circle, so that it's more of a flat wreath and it doesn't have like the 3D to it. So you can stack them all together without getting a super thick wreath in the middle. I kind of like only having one wreath form here in the middle though. I think that made it a little bit easier for the final step of the sunflower. So I'm just trying to space them out kind of evenly, kind of like what I have the bunny ears. I kind of separated those a little bit so they weren't touching. I know a lot of people when they make these make their petals touching, and if you were going to do 6 of them, 12 petals, it would probably make them all touch. And so it's kind of up to you whether you want to do 10 or 12, but I chose to do 10. I didn't really want them completely touching. I wanted a little bit of separation between each one. And this was a time-consuming wreath, and it was probably because of this extra step of having to make all these petals, but I absolutely love how it turned out. And it was the only kind of really thick wire that I could think of from the Dollar Tree that would be easy enough to maneuver and attach to this, but strong enough to keep its shape for the petals. So I just keep cutting these. The masking tape method worked great. I'll probably use that all the time when I cut this wire jute because I always struggle with it. And the total time I spent on this sunflower bee wreath was, I think, 2 hours. So it was a really long DIY, but I have it way sped up for you. So just a few more petals and we have a flower shape. And from there, we can keep decorating this DIY. I was just checking my spacing on everything and making sure the wire was bent properly. And I think that looks pretty good. Now for the petals, I wanted all of mine to be yellow like a sunflower, and I found this soft, like fleecy yellow fabric at the Dollar Tree this year, and luckily I picked up 2 packages of this because it's definitely going to require a lot. Other items that you could use to line your petals is like the honeybee or honeycomb burlap. There's honeycomb fabric and other kinds of yellow fabrics as well. But I love the color of this one. I thought it would be perfect. So I just sketched out one bunny ear on the fabric with a Sharpie, and I'm going to kind of fold it here so I can cut 4 at a time. A little bit of a time saver. It's a little longer than half though, so I do have to go in for my second piece, but I was able to save quite a bit of this fabric. And then I'm just going to go ahead and cut it all at once. I didn't pin it down or anything. It seemed to stay in place pretty well, just making sure everything is still lined up. And we're going to cut this out. I want it cut pretty much the right size, but a little bit wider so that there'll be enough fabric to attach it to the sides of the petal. And this fabric, it was folded up, so there is some wrinkling in it, and I wanted to make sure that it didn't have any wrinkling in my sunflower. So I do go through and iron these once I cut them. It'd probably have been a little bit easier to iron the fabric first though, because I had to go in and do them all separately. So I'm using that same little bunny ear for a template. I've stacked it in 4 here on the second piece. And I'm actually going to draw it on there. It makes it a little bit easier. I probably shouldn't have used an orange marker though, because I had a hard time trying to cut all of that off. A chalk marker would probably work a little bit better, but we're going to cut out 4 more here. And so now I'll just need 2, and I still have both of those fabric scraps there, so no problem. I'll have plenty of fabric for this. I kind of like the fact that it's yellow, more traditional for a sunflower, this fabric, but you could always mix it up and use different fabric for each petal. That could be really fun as well. So I just needed 2 more, and we're almost there. And then I was like, I do want to iron these. I have a Cricut Easy Press. I don't really use this for t-shirts anymore since I have a fancy heat press now, but it's great for my crafting station to iron fabrics that I'm crafting with. So it is handy, and I love using it for that. So I'm just going to give all of these a quick iron, and then we're going to attach these to the petals. I did have to do it a different way for the wire versus the wire jute, and I'll show you how I put it all together. Now, normally when I cover Dollar Tree wreath forms with fabric, I will attach the fabric to the back, the wire on top, and then I'll cover the wire with something else like Dollar Tree rope, which is what we're going to use on these petals too. And so I'm going to do that for the wired parts. I find that the easier way, but when I got to the twine parts, I had to do it a little bit differently because I didn't want that twine to get in the way. It's definitely thicker and bulkier than just the wire. The wire is really small, so it's easy to kind of hide underneath the Dollar Tree rope. So I just put hot glue all around the petal and laid this on here, kind of stretching out the fabric to make sure it goes edge to edge. Don't worry if you have a little bit extra fabric, you can always trim it off if you can see it after you add your rope. But these 2 petals were really easy with the metal parts here. So I'm going to do the same thing here for the second one. Now, since I can't really go underneath with the wired jute because that jute's going to get in the way, I'm actually going to lay it on top of it. So I'm just going to do a half of it at a time so my hot glue doesn't set up, and I just put hot glue there and lay my fabric out going all the way to the edge of it. And one thing I liked about doing the twine parts is the petals aren't perfect, which of flower petals are not perfect, so I kind of think it added to the vibe of it. I made my fabric a little bit longer here so I can make sure that it's all going to be tucked into the center of the sunflower when we're done with it. And that seemed to work really well. So I just do hot glue on half, lay the fabric on there, make sure it's lined up properly, and then go in and do the other half. And I just have to do that 6 more times. That also adds to like the time that it took to do this project, but I'm so glad I made it. It's so large. You can use this for a wall hanging, but I think it's going to look great on my front door. So many fun options for a spring wreath, and I think this is a perfect theme. And I can also use it for summer too. So win-win. I just keep going around. I'm using like the fuzzy fabric up here on this and attaching one petal at a time. Having them all cut and iron and everything like that did kind of increase the speed on this, kind of made it a little bit like an assembly line. Now, if you're going to use the bunny ears for all of them, you would go under the wire for all of them too. But this is how I made mine. Mine was a little bit more of a challenge, making my own petals, but I really love how it turned out. Now that I have it all together, I noticed that the petals that were not made out of metal wanted to come out a little bit. So I just put some hot glue on the twine on the back of every one of the petals and just glued that to the wreath form, that outer wreath form there, so they would stay flat against my door and not come apart. I guess I could have wired them to the outer ring as well, but I thought it'd be easier to kind of hide all the components if I went into that middle ring. But that seemed to do the trick. So I just made sure that those were all glued down really well. And now we need to make this look better by bordering them all out. For that, I'm going to use Dollar Tree rope. I'm going to use like the thinner one. I had so many pieces of scrap rope in this size, so this was a great DIY for that because I got rid of so many scraps. So I just start here making sure it's a little bit longer so it kind of goes inside that wreath form and simply attaching it with hot glue. I want to make sure that I hide the wire, and I also try to hide the outsides of the fabric. If there is some yellow fabric coming out, I can always trim that off. And I'm going to do these each individually, which really adds to the scrap rope factor. You could do this with a thicker rope from the Dollar Tree too, but I kind of wanted to do it with a thinner one if I could. And so the wire wreath forms were really easy. I just glue it to the wire like that, making sure it's in the perfect position before it glues down, and cut off the excess rope. Now, basically it's the same thing for the petals that I DIY'd. I can kind of feel there where the twine was underneath of it and just glue it to the edge of the fabric and just kind of do the same thing. And we're going to continue doing that rope all the way around. This is why this wreath took 2 hours, because there's so many steps involved in it. But I'm going to put this in super speed, rapid fashion crafting here so we can get this all lined out. Then the next thing I need to do is going to be the center of the sunflower. And I have a fun idea for that. I was trying to think of something circular that I could put inside there to have like a harder surface so I could do the center of the sunflower. I thought about using foam board or poster board, but I didn't know how well that would hold up outside. So I decided to go with a wood sign. And I was able to find a wood sign from Dollar Tree that I think will work perfectly. Now, once I have it all glued on, I do have like a little bit of a mess of hot glue here on the back. I went and kind of cleaned mine up a little bit with my heat gun, but honestly, you're not going to be able to see it back there anyway. And then it is time for the center. So this is the wood circle that I found. It's the perfect size. It doesn't have to be this one. It really can be any of them. But you know what? It already has a hanger on there, so I thought I would take advantage of that, kind of just putting that through the wreath form here. And I can attach this to the wreath form. The problem is that the wreath form, that middle section's higher and it's a little bit larger than the sign, so there's really no great way to glue this down. So I actually ended up using rope to glue it down. So I'm using more of that scrap rope that I used for the petals, and I'm gluing the rope to the wood sign and also to the wreath that I'm DIYing, and that's going to secure the wood on there since there was really no good way for me to secure that wood down to that wreath form. I guess you could always wire it too, but I really didn't want anything else to get in the way. And you're not going to be able to see this rope in the end, but it did provide a good way to glue this on. So I just went around one time with hot glue. And then I just want to find kind of the center of this. I'm going to work from the center of the flower out with Dollar Tree rope. And for this one, I'm going to switch up to the larger diameter rope, just so I don't have to use as much. It really doesn't matter which one you use. And I start right here in the middle with a little dab of hot glue and just start spiraling this around. What I want to do is spiral rope until it covers the beginning of the petals and it covers that wire wreath form, and that's going to be the center of our sunflower. I thought about painting this like a darker color, but I really like how the rope matches the rope around the petals, and I think the Dollar Tree rope is really pretty on its own, so I'm gonna leave it this color. Now, the wider rope does cover more at a time, but it is shorter. There wasn't enough on here to make it all the way around, so I did have to use 2 packages. But it's easy enough to start and stop on this. Just make sure you remove your tape from your ends and kind of push it together as you start and stop. You can always add a little hot glue to that little section to make it blend in a little bit better. And my circles stayed pretty symmetrical here. I was a little worried that it wouldn't be when I got to this part, but I didn't have any problems covering everything up here. So I just continue with that same piece of rope. And basically I use the whole thing. So going all the way around. So 2 packages of the thicker rope there for the middle. And I want to kind of cut this at an angle here so it doesn't take away from the round shape here, and glue down the little ends of the rope here with some hot glue. It's looking so cute. I really love how this DIY turned out. And this is a bee DIY. We haven't got to the bee yet. And then it's Dollar Tree rope. So of course it's a little bit fuzzy. I just went around with my lighter to help clean it up. And one thing I noticed is that my hanger was not going to be long enough for a wreath hanger to hang on my door, because then I don't want it to be behind the petals. I want it to be longer. So I had to add a little bit more twine to it to make mine long enough to hang on the front door as well. Now for the bee, I picked up this cute little bee wind chime from the Dollar Tree. You could also use like the bee yardstick or whatever you can find. This does have holes in the top and bottom. I'm going to show you how I go about covering those up though. I just use a pair of pliers and take all of the metal chain off mine. I thought it was a perfect size bee for this. It's painted really nicely, so I really don't have to do anything to it. I do want to cover up the holes in it though, and I thought I would use something that would also help to attach it. So I'm using some of the Dollar Tree thumbtacks that come in the little nail boxes from the Dollar Tree hardware section. And I put a little hot glue down here on the rope to secure my little bee to it. And this is going to also secure it. So I put a little hot glue in each one of my holes to glue the thumbtack down into the rope. And I can always paint those to kind of make that blend in a little bit. And that was a really good way to try to cover up those holes. I just used a yellow paint pen and a color that was really close here for the little end of my bee. And switch it up for a black one here for its head. And I also have a little bit of a black stripe here, so I'm going to continue that on too to make the thumbtack completely blend into the project. And this is how it turned out, my giant sunflower bee wreath for spring or summer. It was a labor of love, but I absolutely love how it turned out. I think it's so much fun. What do you guys think about this one? I've always wanted to make something like this, but again, finding that many bunny heads, unless you get really lucky or order them online, I think it would be kind of hard to do, but this is one way you can do it without them. For this bee DIY, I'm going to use one of these little adhesive cork pads from the Dollar Tree that's got a great honeycomb shape, and a Dollar Tree wood bee. And we're going to do a really fun little bee in a honeycomb and make a little standing sign. Now this is adhesive, so it's got like you can pull off the back and adhere something to it. So I thought I would take advantage of that, and I'm going to add some honeycomb fabric on here. Now this is a scrap piece of honeycomb fabric that I've had from previous years. I've noticed every year they come out with a slightly different one. You could also use the honeycomb burlap if that's all you can find, but I thought that would be fun to get the little honey cells inside. I just cut out my scrap fabric. It was just large enough, and I'm just going to give it a quick iron so it'll be nice and flat when I attach it. Now, I didn't think that the adhesive on the back of this little cork board was going to be strong enough to keep the fabric on there, so I decided to make it stickier by adding Mod Podge all over. And that seemed to work really well. And I just put a nice even coat and lay this on here. I have to line this up perfectly to make my scrap piece fit, but I was able to do it. Once I get it on there, I just use a dry paper towel to smooth that out, trying to make sure I don't get any bubbles, and give that a dry so I can cut off the excess material. I usually do like to add the material first like this so I can cut things down to size, get a perfect cut. And I will be framing this out too, so it won't look rough or anything with the rough edges of the fabric. And I want to add that little bee to the front of it and make a cute little standing sign. And there's lots of different options for hexagon signs like this from the Dollar Tree. I have dry erase, I have like chalkboard, I have this adhesive cork, I have signs. I have found so many different ones. but I love the shape of it. To border it out, I'm going to use some of the thinner rope from Dollar Tree. And just like with signs, I'm just going to put some hot glue here on the edges. I use the thinner one because this is not super thick. And I thought this would do a good job of sealing that up. And it's going to look better than those white edges. And I guess this is for, like, they have different ones, dry erase, cork boards, and stuff like that. You can put these on the wall. But I saw mine and I thought that should be a bee DIY. I go all the way around here, just making sure that I kind of meet here at a corner where I can blend that rope in where I start and stop. And I think that looks really cute. I'm going to attach it to one of these metal signs from the Dollar Tree. It's just a quick way to make a standing sign. I'm going to add hot glue back here. You could always use a stronger glue if you wanted for this part. But I think that should hold the cork on pretty well. It's really a lightweight little item. And test it out, make sure it's going to stand up. And since it's so light, it stands up really well. Now for the bee, I got this little wood bee from the Dollar Tree. I think he's so cute. I'm just going to have to paint him. Now, most of him is like the back part or the body. So I thought that part should be black. So I just go in with a paintbrush and paint the entire thing black, just because the bump out parts, it's going to be almost impossible not to get paint on those. And I can always add a few layers of the different colors I want on there to counteract that black. But I just did one coat. I'm okay if it's a little rough looking. It'll just save me from having to distress it when I'm done with it. And then for the bee stripes, I used a yellow paint pen. Again, going yellow over black, a little bit difficult, but I just used 2 or 3 coats of the paint pen to get that bright pop of yellow. But when the little pieces are already attached like this from the Dollar Tree, I find that is the easier way. And I was trying to think about what color I should do the wings, because they definitely need to be a color, but nothing too bright or anything like that. And I ended up just doing white. So again, just like with the yellow, white over black, I am going to have to do a couple of coats. But when I'm working with smaller projects like this, I find paint pens are really easy. Posca paint pens are definitely my favorite. I have these linked in my Amazon shop. You can usually get them on sale pretty cheap on Amazon, but I've also bought them at Target before and individual colors at, I think, Michael's. And I thought my yellow probably needed one more coat to pop against that black. And this is a really fun little bee to create. I've picked up quite a few of these because I think it's a really nice size for bee crafting. And of course, another coat on the wings as well. But he is about ready to go. I'm going to attach him to the front of that little beehive honeycomb once I get him finished painting. Now, I added some hot glue to the back, and at first I was going to kind of put him in the corner like that, but I think I would like him better in the center, so I had a little bit of time to move him to the center without any harm. And I think he looks really cute so far. I did want to add another little fun like spring or summer touch by adding some grass to the stand. This is some of that faux grass for Easter at Dollar Tree Plus right now. I love this stuff for Easter crafting, but I thought it would be really good with this too. It's just a little mat like this, so I'm going to cut it here from behind. I cut it a little bit larger because you're going to need to cut it down a little bit. See how it has like that black mat that's visible? So you can go in and kind of cut that out and get it closer to the grass itself. And so I just cut a little rectangle there for the rectangular base. I thought that'd be a fun little touch. And then I cut a little slit about halfway so I can go around that little metal pole there in the middle. And I'm just going to attach it with a little bit of hot glue right here to keep it attached. And I think that added a little fun element to this spring DIY and made it like a little bit less plain. I love those little metal stands like that from the Dollar Tree though. I always have some of those in my stash for crafting because you don't have to make a stand or anything like that. This is how it looks. I think it's so cute. I guess you could also add a few bees like crawling around in the grass down there too, the little wooden ones. Or you could also use resin ones. When I was on Amazon buying those little wooden bees, I also came across resin ones, which were really cute too, a little bit translucent. But here it is, our little honeycomb using that little tile piece and a honeybee from the Crafter Square at Dollar Tree. And now we're going to switch things up again for St. Patrick's Day. I never like to skip it, and Easter is kind of late this year, so you have plenty of time to decorate for St. Patrick's Day. And I have 3 new St. Patrick's Day Dollar Tree DIYs for you this year. For the first DIY, I'm going to use one of these little leprechaun hats from the Dollar Tree and a planter. This planter is also from the Dollar Tree. I made sure to get one that was small enough to fit inside height-wise because it's not a very tall hat like that. It is round and the hat itself is oval, but I think we can make it work. I'm just going to cut the top off the hat, and this is going to basically be a sleeve for the planter to make a really cute little St. Patrick's Day floral display. Now, cutting the top of it, I used a razor blade to get started, but I needed a little bit more control to go around the curves of this. One thing I did do was leave a little bit of the fabric on the very front and the back there, trying to cut out more of a circle and less of an oval, just because I know I have a circular pot to go in there. And you're not really going to be able to see any of the green felt when we're done with this. It's basically just going to be structure for us to DIY a little mossy leprechaun hat. So I also remove the ribbon and the buckle, everything like that. And we're going to cover the entire thing with moss. Now, I know Dollar Tree doesn't have a lot of St. Patrick's Day crafting supplies. Seems less this year than normal, but they do have enough to make some DIYs. You just have to kind of get creative like this. So I think that's going to work. This is the moss I'm using. It's the green reindeer moss. It's a little fluffy and I need it to be a little bit flatter. So the first thing I did was just dump out a couple of bags of it and just start like pulling it apart because I need it to be thinner. I'm covering a green surface anyway, so it really wouldn't matter if you could see some of the green through. But I don't want to waste too much of the moss or make it so thick that you can't really tell what the structure of it is supposed to be. So just kind of separating it, pulling them apart into like flatter pieces to get started. And now it's time to cover it with moss. I'm just using hot glue and working one section at a time. Make sure to protect your fingers with the hot glue there. And I'm just kind of piecing it together. I'm going to do the sides first because I thought that would be the most challenging part. And basically we're going to cover the entire thing with moss. Now they do have like different kinds of moss from the Dollar Tree. They have a green floral moss, but really it's individual pieces. It's really kind of hard to cover something with that. The reindeer moss is definitely the one I would recommend. They also have like Spanish moss, different kinds of mosses, but this one is definitely my favorite for doing like moss covered items, which I love to do. It's one of my favorite things to DIY is with the moss. And I just keep working one section at a time. I don't want to do too much. I don't want my hot glue to set up. And I also want to try to cover all of the felt if I can. And I just keep working my way around this. Now, I did not put like a bottom on the hat where I could put the pot down into it, which makes it a little bit more challenging to move around. So you might want to add some fabric, burlap, something like that to the bottom of the hat so that you can pick it all up and move it around. I did notice that when I'm moving it around, but you know what? I'm not really going to be moving it around very much. So I think it'll be fine without a bottom on it. So that looks pretty good. We got the entire thing covered with moss. I want to make sure you can't really see the transition between the hat and the pot too. So the very top, I didn't go all the way to the edge there. And so I'm just going to start taking some smaller pieces here and with hot glue, just start working my way around, gluing that on so you won't be able to see. I'm also going to be using that reindeer moss as filler in my pot before I add all of my spring florals. So I want it to all kind of blend in. I don't want to see any of this green felt. The only thing I wish is that the leprechaun hat from Dollar Tree was a little bit taller. I found that it was a little bit short. I think it would look a little bit better if it were taller, but you know, gotta go with what they carry, I guess. I guess I was glad to find this. And that looks pretty good. Now, the only thing still left to cover is the brim of the hat. It's not very big, so I don't think it'll be very much work. I'm just making sure I don't have any bald spots there. Just basically little pieces here, and we're gonna hot glue those all around the edges. I want to do some really fun like spring florals in here, like bright colors and kind of a different color scheme than I normally do, just because it's St. Patrick's Day, so I thought we could have a little bit of fun with this one. So again, just kind of piecing it around. It doesn't take as long as you would think it would be to cover this. One great advantage is that it is green though, so if you do see any of it through, it's not going to be super noticeable. but I think that's about it. Just making sure I don't have any areas there without any and patching that up. And I think that looks pretty good. I think we have pretty good coverage. If you find any areas that are just too thick, you can always pull some of that off now that it's glued down. You can also go around with some scissors and give it a quick trim, especially like around like the brim of the hat and anywhere where it's kind of taken away from the shape of the little leprechaun hat. Now for the ribbon that came with it, it's now too short, but I did want to replace it with something anyway. So just seeing if about how long I need it to be, but I want to use some of the faux leather from Dollar Tree in black. This has been on sale for 50 cents for a while at my Dollar Trees, and unfortunately, it is not long enough either. So I will have to cut 2 leather ribbons, but this is a great way to make some leather ribbon if you're not able to find any. I've never actually found any leather ribbon at the Dollar Tree, but definitely these leather rolls like this. So it looks like it's about the same thickness as my ruler, so I'm going to keep that for scale and just turn it over. You can just kind of sketch on the back of it. I'm just using a Sharpie to make a couple lines so I can cut out some leather ribbon. I want to wrap that ribbon around the base of it and add a buckle back to it so it looks like the leprechaun hat that we started with originally, just way more high end. This stuff is so easy to cut and work with. I love crafting with it. It comes in like off-white, brown, navy, and black, I believe. At least those are the colors that I have. So I'm going to use one piece of it here towards the back, so you really won't be able to see the transitions too much. So I'm just going to glue this little back piece on. It won't need to be that long. And overlap here with my front piece, just attaching that with hot glue, wrapping it kind of tight down in within the moss, and then we'll have like just a seam back here on the back. Easy enough to hot glue, and I think it looks really nice too. So we have the little strap on our leprechaun hat. Now it just needs a buckle. Now the one that came with it was actually gold, glittery, and I think it's perfect for it. So instead of remaking this, I'm just going to use the one that came on it, just attaching that with hot glue and adding it to the black leather ribbon. And this part of it is complete. You do have to be careful using your heat gun on that to get rid of hot glue strings because the moss does like to smoke a little bit, but I was able to get rid of just the strings. And now time to add the little flower pot and some foam. I'm going to use one of the big square pieces here because it will cover a lot. And then use some of the smaller pieces of foam here. It's easy to carve this stuff down. I like to use the little pool noodle cutters from the Dollar Tree to cut my foam. And I'm just going to cut down a slice to go on all 4 sides just to completely fill it out. So I have plenty of foam to add my florals to. And then I'm going back in with more reindeer moss to cover this entire thing up. I don't really need to cover the center, just the edges where you'll be able to see from when we add the flowers. I also kind of want to make sure that you can't see that blue pot underneath. This is the florals that I'm going to use. I'm going to use the one on the right and then the butterfly from the one in the middle. And then the rest of the greenery, I want to use some of the Dollar Tree clovers. Now these do have a gold glitter sprinkle on them usually. Sometimes they don't. These all do, but it's not super distracting. I think it'll be fine. I'm just going to cut them down into individual pieces with my wire cutters and kind of scatter those all over, kind of forming like a little outer edge. And then we can start going in with these pretty florals. Aren't these so pretty? I love the yellow and purples. I think that will look really good. I'm just going to go ahead and cut these down. And I was trying to decide if I needed more greenery. I think I will need some. I'm just going to kind of like scatter these all over. One bunch is definitely enough to fill this up. And then I'm going to go back in with more clover. Working in layers like this, I found this helpful. You can kind of add, see if it's enough. You can always add a little bit more and kind of keep building this out. I do like the other spring florals that I have there with the butterflies on them, but they have like some large yellow flowers that I think are a little too big, and the pink flower. I don't really have any pink on this one, but I do like the butterfly on there. It's purple. So I went ahead and added that and just removed the pink flower, just keeping the butterfly kind of towards the front of the project. and then kind of seeing if that's going to be enough. It's kind of a bigger pot. I thought maybe a little bit more greenery would be good. And you can't have too many of these little clovers when you're doing St. Patrick's Day. So just a few more pieces arranging this. I think it turned out really cute. It was a fun idea. I had an idea to do this, but I just came up with the idea to cover it in moss. And I'm so glad that I did because it is really fun. See what I kind of mean about it not having a bottom, and when you move it, it wants to come apart. But that's why you might want to put a little bit of cloth there on the bottom. But this is how mine turned out. I think it's so bright. I love the spring flowers and the butterfly touch in there, along with the clovers, of course, the little shamrocks, and of course the moss there on the leprechaun hat. Isn't that so cute? I think it turned out really pretty. For the next St. Patrick's Day Dollar Tree DIY, we're just going to use some of their decals. They have some really nice window decals, even if they don't have a lot of crafting items this year. And I picked up a Dollar Tree square wood sign. I love these signs. This one doesn't have the frame, which I kind of prefer this one. And you can stain these. So I'm just going to go over it with some antique wax by Waverly. I want more of a medium stain, so I don't want to put too much on there. Once I get that on there, I go and follow that up with a baby wipe and just spread that around, staining that. I think that'll be a nice background for one of those little window decals, and they're so cute. They're have a little gold glitter on there, but I think that's really pretty for St. Patrick's Day. I also went ahead and stained the wood beads on here. Spoiler though, I end up not wanting them on there and I do remove them, but I did stain them in this process. You can stain them like this without taking them off, just using a baby wipe to kind of spread out the stain and kind of get in between the individual pieces of wood beads. And this is the one we're going to use. This one says Lucky and Blessed. It's got a little pot of gold. I think it's so cute. And I've got a few more ideas to make this really fun. So the first thing I do is just do a thin layer of Mod Podge all over the sign. And the reason I go all over is because I don't want any difference in sheen between the decal and the sign itself, where I kind of start and stop. And then I just lay the decal right on top. If you have any like little dots of dust or anything like that, you will be able to feel that. You'll get a little bit of a bump on that, but it's flexible with the Mod Podge. You can kind of pull it up and remove that. I just use a paper towel to smooth it out and try to avoid any bubbling or anything like that. It was slightly bigger than my sign, but not much. I just cut off the little tiny pieces that were overlapping the edge. And I did think about cutting the green border off, but I decided it really wasn't that distracting. And then I'm going to go over the whole thing again with more matte Mod Podge. This is going to seal it in, and even though it's matte finish and I'm going over glitter, it doesn't tone it down too much. It still has a little bit of a sparkle when it dries. Then for some fun confetti, I picked up some little coin confetti at the Dollar Tree, and it's got rainbows, coins, and little pot of golds, and I thought that would be fun to add to it. That's when I decided I didn't like the hanger too much, so I'm going to replace that with just some plain twine. But I do want to use these coins to decorate this. And aren't these cute? There's different size gold coins. They're very like lightweight, made out of foil almost, but I think they'd be really great to add little coins all over the rest of the sign to kind of go with the theme. And then this is just me replacing the hanger. I just take some twine, knot it, and staple it on the back, just so I didn't have those wood beads kind of competing with the project here. And I'm just going to kind of scatter them all over. I'm going to use some of the larger ones, some of the smaller ones, a variety, and add them all over. They are like so lightweight and made out of foil that I think they would melt if you tried to hot glue them on. So the way that I'm going to attach them is with some tacky glue from the Dollar Tree. I thought that would definitely be strong enough to attach them, yet it's not going to melt them, so you can still see like the little coin faces and stuff on them. And I just want to kind of scatter those all around the sign. I'm really glad I decided to add these to this project because it really made the project a lot better and gave it some more bling. And of course, you got to have lots of gold coins for St. Patrick's Day, a little bit of treasure. One thing about the window decals, at least they're spelled right. I know a lot of the St. Patrick's Day signs I've gotten at Dollar Tree in the past, they have misspelled Patrick for some reason. But this is how it turned out. I think it's so cute. Lucky and blessed. It's not too large. You could probably fit this about anywhere. I think I might put this in my dining area. I have a little area on the side of my cabinets that I like to decorate seasonally. I think this would be really cute there. And see how you can still see the glitter? There's enough of the glitter coming through to kind of go with the bling of the coins as well. Lucky and blessed. Another fun little project using supplies from the Dollar Tree. For the next Dollar Tree, St. Patrick's Day DIY, I picked up this little tinsel leprechaun hat. He's like potted in a little pot here with like some gold coins. I think it's a great structure, a cage. That's basically what I want it for. So the top just pops off and I just remove all of the tinsel. Super easy, and it's gonna leave me like with a cage underneath that I can do something a little bit more my style. The only one that was kind of hard to get off was the gold coins down here. I did have to cut it in a couple areas, and if you notice, most of these cages do pop apart like this when you go to take them apart, so don't freak out or anything. It's not broken, and we're going to be wrapping this with rope, and that'll help keep it together, but I did put a little hot glue here on all of the tabs and put it back together. That way it won't fall apart while I'm crafting, and that will make it a little bit easier. Now, I've seen like different leprechaun hats wrapped in twine. I thought it might be a little easier to use some of the thinner rope from Dollar Tree instead of the twine, but you could do twine. You're just going to have to be wrapping a lot more. I just have some scrap pieces of this thinner rope from the Dollar Tree. I noticed I was completely out, and I was glad to find that you can order this by the case. I ordered a case of the thinner because I have tons of the thick rope, because you never know what you're going to find at your store, right? And you get free shipping to store. You can always use my Dollar Tree link in the description of the video if you want to order online. But if you use a lot of rope for crafting, like I do, I think a case is definitely the way to go. And I won't have to use scrap pieces like I did here. I just started at the top and started hot gluing in a spiral fashion, and we're just going to keep going until I run out of rope. Again, I only had a few pieces of scrap pieces, so I'm going to have to start and stop a lot. But you know what? In the end, you really can't tell. So this is how long my first piece was. I'm just going to make sure I have something to kind of hot glue that into. And then make sure you take the tape off of this and then start again. And you're going to want it not to be frayed or anything like that if you need to cut the ends of them too sometimes. So you have a nice clean rope to start, and you can kind of blend that in. I tried to make all of my seams on the same side of my little leprechaun hat. That way it will make it look a little bit better. Now when you get down here to the brim of the hat, I added just a little bit more hot glue to those areas, and this is how long my second piece is. Luckily, it had a transition right here, the same place where my first rope transitioned, and I'm going to start with my third piece of scrap rope. Now, I just had a project where I made like a giant sunflower for a bee DIY where I used all the rest of my scrap rope like this. So I've actually went through all of my scrap rope, so that's great. I had a lot of it. Here at the bottom, I'm just going to keep going as long as my piece of rope is, because I don't really want the bottom to look plastic like that. I want to cover any part of that cage that you're going to be able to see in the final project. And we're not going to leave this brown rope. We're actually going to paint this rope. And I wanted to use the brown rope because I think when we paint it, we can kind of make it look like moss is what I was going for. Because it's kind of fuzzy and stuff. It's a little bit too fuzzy though, so I do take my lighter and try to burn off some of the major stuff. I like a little bit of the fuzz, but I didn't want any of the little sticks and different things that come out of this Dollar Tree rope sometimes. I wanted to clean it up a little bit so it'd be easier to paint. To paint it, I had two different colors of green. I had leaf green and Christmas green. Now they're very different colors of green. I wasn't sure about the Christmas green color, but what I'm going to do is mix them together. So each time I go to paint this, I just put my brush in both colors and kind of mix it on the rope. That's going to give it a little bit of variation in color as opposed to mixing it before. And I started at the very bottom to kind of see if I liked it before I went over the entire hat. You're going to have to use a brush because you need to get down into those individual little rope fibers. And as you can see, the two colors are mixing pretty well on there. I was a little opposed to that Christmas green color, but it kind of grew on me the more it went along because, you know, St. Patrick's Day is supposed to be bright green. So that's fine, but I like the combination with the leaf green in there too, because I think it gives it a little bit more variety and color. And I want it to look like it's wrapped like in this green rope, not necessarily the brown rope. And I was hoping to kind of get a mossy feel out of it in the end, and it does kind of give you that feel. So I'm just kind of touching it up, adding a little bit more of the leaf green here on top because a lot of the Christmas green was coming through and not a lot of the softer light green. So I just kind of distress it, I guess, all over with some of the leaf green to brighten it up just a little bit. Now, I did get the rope really wet. I did find that it did take a while to dry for sure. I just kind of started it with my heat gun and then kind of let it sit while I did other projects with this DIY. I did have a lot of string still hanging out, so I gave it a quick trim. Now for this part of the project, I'm just going to take some twine and kind of string it up through the cage, tie it off, and then just use the twine to wrap around the stem of this, just really easy. And it's going to give it a nice feel, the rope and the twine and stuff like that. This was a lot easier to wrap with the skinnier twine like this because it was such a small area. Basically just spin it around, do one layer of twine. And then when I got to the bottom, I just kind of tied that off. As you can see, I was getting paint on myself because that rope definitely was wet. So it does definitely take some time to dry, but I needed to get this DIY done. So I kind of kept crafting with it as I went. Now that looks pretty good. The pot is the next item that we need to decorate. I thought burlap would look really good on this. And so I'm just using some of that burlap roll from the Dollar Tree. You could always use a larger piece, kind of cut it down to size. This has a finished edge there, so I was going to take advantage of that. I just wrap it around. Now it is, smaller on the bottom than the top, so I have to try to keep it taut here and kind of pull it almost a little bit at an angle. I just slightly overlap the burlap here in the back, and we're going to attach it with hot glue, trying to keep to the shape of the little pot without really messing with the top of it too much. I want that to be nice and flat. Now it is a little bit taller than our pot. I don't necessarily want to cut it. I don't want any burlap fraying. So I just used hot glue and kind of glued that to the very bottom, just kind of working one piece at a time. And it made it look almost like it was a burlap bag planter, which looks really cute for this DIY. Now, one thing about this was a tinsel project, so it was definitely not very heavy duty. So I am going to be adding some rocks to the bottom of that to weigh it down a little bit. This is what my painted rope looks like so far. It's still kind of wet, but I thought it was going to be definitely too top heavy. So I just put some extra pebbles that I have from the Dollar Tree in the bottom just to weigh that down before I pop that back in. I'm also going to use a little bit of hot glue to help keep that in there, because it kind of pops in, but not really clicking or anything like that. Then I'm going to go in with some of the brown floral moss here to fill this up. We're going to fill this up with coins, like before it had tinsel coins, but this time we're going to use some of those gold coins from the Dollar Tree. Some definitely larger ones, but I think it's going to look really cute. And I thought that the brown floral moss would look nice with this, but you could always use reindeer moss or something like that too if that's all that you had. I just attached that with hot glue, completely covering that plastic cage. You can't see any of the plastic cage at this point. And these are the coins that I was talking about. They are plastic, but they actually look pretty nice. Like the gold on them is nice, and they have little 4-leaf clovers on there. I'm just going to attach them to the floral moss with a little bit of hot glue, kind of scattering those all over, overlapping it, making like it's full of gold. We're almost done with this project. Just a few more ideas to make this extra special. I really love how this turned out. It just has so many fun details. Now the next thing we need to do is do like the little strap and buckle here on the leprechaun hat. I'm going to use the burlap roll again, but this time I'm going to cut out a thinner piece of burlap, making sure it looks a little bit frayed and stuff too, pulling out a string or two here at the end. And it doesn't have to be very thick because this is not a very large little hat, but just a piece that's going to be long enough to go all the way around. And then I also want to add a little buckle to this too, but I want to keep with that rope burlap feel. So I think that looks really cute. And I love the little touch of gold that we have with the gold coins. I'm also going to be adding a gold buckle to this because it's St. Patrick's Day. We can't have enough gold, even though it is like natural elements like the burlap and the rope. I'm going to use some of the gold glitter scrapbook paper from the Dollar Tree to replace the buckle. I'm going to use the one that came on it as a reference. I didn't really like it. It was very foil looking and cheap looking, and I thought that the gold glitter scrapbook paper would look a little bit better. I just used it for reference, cut it down to size. I just need a little rectangle, and then you just kind of have to fold it in half to get to the middle to be able to cut down the inside of the buckle. And I just cut that out and then trimmed it up to kind of make my edges a little bit more even because they were a little bit crazy there to begin with. But I didn't want any cuts on the buckle. I wanted it to be one piece like this. And now we can attach it. As you can see, it's not real obnoxious. It is gold glitter, but I think it looks really cute. I'm just going to add a couple dots of hot glue here on the back of that and add that to our little leprechaun hat. Now, I thought one more detail really might make it special. The little burlap planter is a little bit plain here, and I get these little craft kits from the Dollar Tree. Again, they don't have a lot of St. Patrick's Day items, but they do have these like little craft kits where you can pick them up and get little supplies like this, like a green felt shamrock. I thought this would be perfect. It's not too crazy or anything like that. And it's the perfect size. So I just attach it with a couple dots of hot glue here on the burlap. And I think this is the perfect finishing touch for our little leprechaun hat. Isn't this cute? You could use this on its own. That's how I'm going to use it for decor. Or you could also use this maybe for a tier tray. Super cute. We're also going to be doing a St. Patrick's Day coffee bar and a St. Patrick's Day tier tray in this video as well. This is how it turned out. I love the look of the green painted rope. I think it's really pretty. And the little pot of gold down here at the bottom. Perfect for St. Patrick's Day. What do you guys think about this one? And thanks so much for joining me today. I really hope you enjoyed these 19 Dollar Tree spring DIYs. I had so much fun putting this video together for you and making these DIYs. Please let me know which one is your favorite down in the comment below. And don't forget to check out my second channel, Crafty Little Beach, on your phone if you like to watch little individual vertical videos, and enjoy.
Just like a dream, you and I standing wild and free, with petals so golden, the sun's warm kiss, a love so strong, a bliss. Whispers of the breeze, secrets unfold. It's you that I need, it's you that I want. When the world gets cold, it's you and me. When the sun comes back, you'll see. Oh, dandelion, the strength that you've shown, stronger each year. Look how we hold on through the toughest of times. We still stand strong. Through pavement we will grow. Forever we will grow. smile upon your face, and I see something shimmering in your eyes. And they say if you want to glimpse the future, you need space. And you said you'll put down your morning guns. Would you follow me to wonders? Take my hand and walk beside me in a whirl of thunder. Fear is an imposter. When you look at me this way, I find it hard to not give in. So the days became weeks, it felt just like the night before. You were slowly fading in my mind. When you left, I was so completely gone, but now I'm sure you were some of the best of things to find. Would you follow me to wonders? If you're everything that matters to me, makes me wonder why I can't get over you. When you look at me this way, I find it hard to not give in.
Thank you so much for making it all the way to the end of today's video. That really does help my videos do better here on YouTube. And I also want to thank all of our YouTube members for your support. Thank you to Karen O'Haron, Melinda Elizabeth, Jamie Job, Susan Edmonds, Tracy Knight, Janae Farrington, Pamelia Wren, Donna Schreiner, I Am Mojo Jojo, Live Another Day, Naren Christensen, Adrian Brolt, Debbie Middleton, Red Mama, Donna Tanner, Kim Rogers, and Maria Cruz Pagan. Thank you guys so much for being members here. I appreciate my Crafty Beach Bum members. If you would like to become one, all you do have to do is hit the join button next to today's video. You're going to get early ad-free access to my content here on YouTube, a badge next to your name when you comment down below, and a shout out in every video. It's $4.99 a month. You're free to cancel at any time. And I'd also love to see what you've been crafting. Be sure to share your DIYs in our private Facebook group, linked in the description of today's video. Would you like more Dollar Tree DIY crafting inspiration? Be sure to check out one of these videos right here. And until next time, happy crafting!